Thanks, everyone. I'm Bob Skana.
I'm Paul Hellhake.
So we're the founders of Rajant. There's been some questions about why did you start this company, and what's a little bit of the history. We have a lot of new folks. We have a lot of folks who've been with us a long time. Company's 20 years old, and this is by far the largest group we've had. I think Paul has some. He's recently dug in to find out when we started this. When was it, Paul, we started?
Yeah, so the what we can call the first summit was in 2007. We were in a different location, but here in Arizona, in Wickenburg. And we probably, from the photos that I looked at, I think there was about 40 people there. And half of them were Rajant.
Right, half of them were Rajant. So we would come out in the desert. We needed to do a lot of testing for our radios. And of course, we followed all the appropriate FCC rules because we would not do otherwise. And we did fun things. We had helicopters. We would, again, following not only FCC rules, but FAA rules. We would take the doors off the helicopter, zip tie antennas and radios to the helicopter. We had hot air balloons with radios on them, sometimes 15, 18, 20 quads out in the desert with radios on them. And we would invite folks, potential customers. This was about 30 miles further out in the desert from here. So a lot more rustic than this. This is pretty buffed up compared to where we used to stay. And then Paul, he would come out and I would make extravagant promises, some of which were semi-true. And then Paul would have to execute. Mostly he wanted to execute me. Go ahead.
There were quite a few fun ones. When he's talking about the helicopters and things like that, he sprung those at the last minute. Oh, there's a helicopter arriving. Can we do a convoy and a helicopter and go 15 miles and connect everybody? And by the way, customers are showing up too.
Video from 15 miles away through multiple links through a helicopter as a bridge, and he always pulled it off. I'm sometimes last minute with these ideas.
Sometimes.
How about a hot air balloon with a radio on it, and then let's practice TROIP, tactical radio over IP, from multiple quads using the balloon as the link. Paul would, his big worry was getting this stuff to work and function. And my big worry was, can we make payroll in the next 2 weeks, right? So it was a challenging, very challenging time for the first couple of years. And I think Paul, we were together on 9/11. That's really how Rajant started as a result of what happened on 9/11. We happened to be riding together that day, and Paul was driving. So why don't you give a little background?
Yeah, at the time, Bob and I were both on the board of another company, and we were looking at wireless last mile solutions, and we were on our way to Sarnoff Labs in New Jersey. And on our way there, we got a phone call from somebody else that was not on the trip with us, but watching the TV, and said, there's been a plane crash into one of the towers. By the time we got to Sarnoff Labs, they had it up in the lobby. We stood there and watched it. We did go into our meetings. Bob and I began talking almost immediately about the work that we were doing. Was there a possibility of repurposing it to solve some of the problems? Because the big problem that we heard about was the lack of communications around the towers, and what we were doing, we thought had an opportunity in that. So we abandoned our first goal and made a new goal, and spent a few years focused on military and first responders. Back then, we were a direct sales company, but mostly research, I would say.
I would say.
We weren't selling anything.
We had no customers, so it made it easy to be a research company.
So we did get to deploy once at the Pennsylvania Emergency Management
PEMA,
Agency,
yeah.
in which we cleared the building because we didn't notify everybody that we were placing the first breadcrumbs around in the hallways. And suddenly everybody was filing out and they were pulling the fire alarms because they thought somebody had put a bomb in there.
You may recall, I mean, people were kind of hypersensitive in those days. I left one of an early Ragent breadcrumb model on top of an ATM machine at 30th Street Station, and they cleared 30th Street Station.
Yeah, but you sent an intern to go pick it up.
I did. I said, I'm not freaking going down there. So they cleared 30th Street Station, and so we set out to create a technology that could be, this was pre-smartphones, right? So it was just to have a networking technology that people that didn't know anything about networking could set up, and this thing could kind of self-organize and then self-administer. So that was really the original notion. We cleverly sold nothing really into the first responder community.
Much.
As we would pitch, and I don't know if you recall, but after 9/11, the government put like $50 billion, into the first responder industry to buy equipment. But big boys with big toys. Most of the money flowed into new fire trucks and big SWAT trucks and AR-15s and stuff like that. Radios were kind of way less cool. So Motorola, I think, a couple of big companies got the lion's share of that. But we did get the attention of the U.S. military and started getting some R&D contracts with the military, which is, today, InstaMesh, which you folks are representing all around the world. I think we've spent over $50 million on the R&D side for InstaMesh at this point. But it all started out of 9/11. And I would say, really our first year of revenue was probably 2003, maybe a couple 100,000 revenue, 2004, a couple 200,000-300,000 in revenue. So just to give you a sense of, and really we do this and we've been effective. Paul's technical team is spectacular, but it's the partners. We decided early on we weren't going to build a giant sales force. Give you a sense, we started with 2 guys. I think we're probably 170 people now. We started with our first business was probably in Pennsylvania and Harrisburg with PEMA, I think might have been the first customer. And now I think we're in 74 countries. And we've grown since that first year of revenue, we were 200,000-300,000 in 2002 or 3. We've averaged 23% a year in compound annual growth in the last 18 years of revenue. So it's a really consistent story and team. This year, we will do well over 50 million as a company. And I like that this is a great number for me because a young fella here asked me some CEO questions, and I gave him answers. I don't know whether they were good or bad, but I gave him some answers what I thought about things. But I tell you what, it's for me as CEO, and I'm sure for Paul as president, CTO, it's a number that means a lot to me, which is there's about 30 million companies in the U.S. And about 4 or 5% of them ever get to $1 million in revenue in 1 year. And then there's 0.4% that ever get to 50 million in 1 year. It's almost unheard of that the starting team is still there 20 years later when a company goes from 0 to $50 million. So that's very exciting to me. Because it represents just years of consistent performance by the whole group. We can't do this, Paul and I. We simply cannot do what's been accomplished by ourselves. This is an expression of everybody that we've come across in these last 20 years. So the story's not about me or Paul. The story's really about all the people that ride with us. And so, I never want any of us at Rajant to forget that. So you'll hear me repeat this as a theme, because I wake up and we're fortunate we do really cool things, but I never forget that I'm really lucky that we have the partners, relationships, support that we have around the world. So, bon.
Yeah, well, I just give an example, and that is right now, something we started with COVID was every week I give an update to all of the development and manufacturing staff. It's about 30 minutes long every single week, except tomorrow. I get to miss one. And everything I'm talking about is what our partners and distributors are doing. That's what everybody wants to know. That's what keeps our staff excited about the work that we get to do. It's the stories that we hear from the field, the use of the things that we work on that, I think in a lot of companies become invisible to the employees. In our case, I think we've been able to keep the excitement at Rajant because we can tell those stories and hear about what everybody's doing in the field, and it's so diverse. I mean, if we were just in mining, we'd probably run out of stories, although I keep having more stories on those every week, so maybe we wouldn't. Our products have gotten into so many different industries, and it's pretty exciting. I mean, we like to keep tabs on that. I wish I even knew more.
We have the military side of the business, and it's really interesting stuff. And your industrial side of this, these things kind of go back and forth and support each other. A lot of what we learn on the industrial side helps on the military side, vice versa. But for the Rajant family, and that's all of you, including the 170 employees around the world, those that aren't here. We've had the ability to save lives in a real direct way. I'm sure most of you are aware of the U.S. leaving Afghanistan last year. And we left the Kabul airport. And while that evacuation was going on, every day, multiple times a day, the Taliban were shooting rockets at the American soldiers, and they were shooting rockets at the evacuees. And Mike Van Rassen, who's sitting over there, Mike was responsible for a military program called CRAM, and we're the radios that allow CRAM to function. I think it was pretty close to 100% success rate in shooting down inbound rockets, mortars, and artillery, and all through the many years in Afghanistan and Iraq and also Syria. So it's the same technology, basically the same exact technology that you're selling in the mining industry and oil and gas and rail and ports. Was used many times to save the lives of American soldiers and other people around the world. So it's a great thing to be a part of. There was a program, I don't know if you remember the name of the program, but it came out of CCOM. Wolfhound, yes, Wolfhound, where 3-man teams would walk around the desert in Afghanistan wearing funny-looking antennas and our radios on their back, and the radios were able to, and the sensors that the soldiers were wearing were able to pick up the ambient signals of garage door openers, cell phones that were being used to command detonate IEDs, explosives that were killing American soldiers. And so this system could locate and triangulate the location of an enemy soldier before they were able to detonate their explosive device and kill Americans and American allies. And so we know that over 2,000 times these enemy soldiers were interdicted before they were able to detonate their explosives. So those are the things that, when you do this job, that's the really great part, right? Is you're doing this work and ultimately whether it's people on patrol in Afghanistan or somebody at the bottom of the mine, that this stuff is doing its job and it's keeping people safe, it's keeping equipment safe, and it's ultimately saving lives. So that's, for us in the leadership team, that's a really, really compelling and important thing that we do as a company. And you are all part of it because what we learn industrially flows into the military side of that. So they're all integrated. Are there other things for us to talk about here? First customer.
I had asked Bob to look into this company that we had heard that we thought we were competing with, that had shut down, to see if we could get some technical people. And Bob came back with a salesman, which was very disappointing to me.
It's true.
But within 4 months of him being hired, we were at leaving equipment at a mine. And that was the Kennecott copper mine in Salt Lake City. And story that I heard was they were only loaning the equipment so they could see how it worked with the pump systems. Well, 6 months later, we were told we had to do 200 vehicles. We had never even built a batch of 50, maybe even 20 at one time. And suddenly we had to make it work.
So all of you, when a potential customer, Rod, when a potential customer says, can you build 200 and put them on 200 vehicles, what is the answer? Yes. That's the answer we gave. But somehow, Paul and the team, I mean, basically reinvented the technology like 15 times in the space of like 3 or 4 months and got it to work.
We had nightly firmware updates at that time, because they hit a new plateau every single day. It was like, oh, it's working great. And then by the end of the day, they would install 3 more vehicles and there'd be problems. And we had to go find all those problems. But we learned a lot that carried over. I mean, I went to visit out there and said, oh, I brought you new firmware. And they said, take a few minutes and go out and install some for us. Well, by the end of the day, I had reached one site and realized, yeah, it's not going to work on a USB stick sticking these in. We need over-the-air firmware updates. So they taught us a lot of lessons about how to
ruggedness
operate. Yeah.
We were forced out of survival reasons to get really rugged in what we built. And what some of the stories of the failures we would have in Africa, you get a phone call that your radios aren't monkey proof.
Yeah. Crows.
Well, monkeys
yes.
like to pull, there's like a little grommet that waterproofs them, and they're like, just for yucks. And Paul be like, yeah, we're not crow proof.
Yet.
Yeah, we would shortly be crow proof, but
yes.
So this is, I mean, it was all, we were like, how do we get in the hardware business? I mean, it was a constant eye opener and a reaction. We had stuff shaken apart. I think it was in Colombia, and we put some kind of sensor on it to measure vibration. Right. It was like 28 G's or something. They had it like at the end of a pole, at the end of a mast. So it was the harmonics were being heard on the moon. And of course, your stuff is just not rugged, right? So when you hear today, and it's really stable technology, it's really 20 years of accretive lessons learned, mostly out of self-defense. We have learned that, the only real answer is just show up and be good at what you do. But the Kennecott thing kind of made us in the mining industry. If you go back to our business plan from 2001 and you looked at anything we wrote up till 2006 or 2007, you would not see the word mining in any of our plans. And today, Jeff, how many mines are we in?
More than 260.
More than 260 mines now around the world. And, Ron's over there around it's partners like him that have just evangelized around the world. Australia, we were just lucky that MindSight Technologies, I think Mike Folletti's here somewhere. Mike used to work for them, and Mike in very early years came out to Aguila in Arizona, and he sold our stuff around the world. I'm not sure why he did it, but he did it. And they got us to, we've got to be one of the largest suppliers of communications to the mining industry globally today. And it really started with that Kennecott mine, and I should mention the name, you'll hear a little bit more about it, but Gary Anderson, who was the guy that I hired when Paul was hoping I'd hire an engineer from Vivada. And Gary, he got us into the mining industry. Special and unique man. And whatever I aimed him at, I said, oil and gas. I want to be in the oil and gas industry. He went and got us our first oil and gas customers, international. He's a heat-seeking missile, and he always found it. So distributors, that's our sales channel. It's again wasn't a super great plan, right? We tried direct sales for a while, and then we tried a kind of hybrid direct.
Obviously, a company can't grow unless there's, especially in the technology that we're in, unless there's somebody coming up with solutions. And we know we're just an arms dealer. We try to supply what's needed, but it's the reseller community that is solving problems. They're the real engineers in it. And we were trying to determine how to gain more. And we landed on the going with distributors. We've met many more resellers, partners that we probably would have had no chance at bringing on board if it wasn't for the distributors.
So thank you for indulging us and being here to participate. Thank you. Enjoy your dinner.
I know all the jokes have been made about axe throwing already, but I just wanted to make one announcement. Apparently, Marty's Dungeon and Dragon avatar has come to life, and he will now be known as Marty the Axe Coder. So this morning, it says engineering and development. That encompasses everything from even shipping and repairs. Everybody is really part of that group. With the repairs, I mean, half of those people, half of their time is spent probably building or repairing prototypes that we thought we got right the first time. With shipping, they're finding all of the stuff that we order and can't keep track of. And I know that's a real effort because just last week my wife gave me one of the Christmas presents she had somehow lost in her office. So it must be hard to find all the stuff that we come up with. So today, like in the past couple of years, it's going to be a group presentation. We had to cut out half of what we were planning on talking about today. There's so much going on. It's more to kind of give everybody a taste of what's happening. This isn't a training session. The technical details will be light, hopefully light enough for everybody. And the number of people is pretty large for the time we have. So as one warning, if you know that you're up next, please start to queue up because in planning all this, I realized we did not give any transition time. So immediately you're going to be talking. So to get started, I think we have Brad and Zach and Warner. Are you guys ready? Wherever you are.
I'm Brad Fike, Senior Hardware Director, as opposed to David Grund, who is the Dev Hardware Director. So I have everyone who's basically making something. And I wanted to give you some context really quick. Okay, so I wanted to tell everyone how manufacturing split up. Over time, I've noticed some of the new employees, some of the dev people don't really know who to go to or what's happening with certain groups. So this is the gist of it. This is a little intro to Wanter and Zach, who will come up and speak on their groups individually. Manufacturing is dev's customer, obviously. We get stuff, packages that we keep fine-tuning that come to us from dev, and they include documents that we need to go out and shop vendors in order to get our stuff made, if in fact we're using a vendor or a contract manufacturer. In the past, early in Ragent, we used just contract manufacturers and then double tested the units when they came in to make sure everything was all right and put our code on it. But so now things have changed. We have moved Dave Keaton to facility manager in Kentucky, and his counterpart in dev, if anyone's wondering, is Travis Miller. He's the team lead for dev down in Kentucky for the building. Dave's the senior guy. So if anyone needs something moved or done or rooms reserved or anything like that in Kentucky, those are the guys to see. So then we got Cliff Cole in, which was a game changer for us because the talents that he brought to the job really allowed us to take a step forward in things. Cliff's been great, and we've made great strides, and we got everything set up. We got our guys in Kentucky and PA starting to train on Kaizen, if you want to call it that, Toyota, statistical process control, all that kind of thing. We're constantly training our people to be better. In part of that, we engaged the Creole team, the team that actually tests and puts our firmware on the unit. So we've got all this great synergy and engagement going now, and our groups are growing, things are going great, and then we have supply issues. So in a second, Cliff and Diana are going to come up here and speak about what we've done about supply issues. They've been doing a great job. Before Cliff showed up, I used to be the procurement guy scouring the world for the 50 radios that we need, but we've grown so much, it's one person can't even remotely try and start doing this. So Cliff's been at the head of that effort, as has Diana, and I think Maria, and probably everyone sooner or later gets pulled into that. Let's see. So all of these guys are now trained. I started an initiative, and I asked Dave Keaton, we need to get these guys trained in concepts of manufacturing. So Dave took that and ran with it. And now we actually have, if anybody knows what this is, we have 6 Sigma black belts and green belts in Kentucky. And that's pretty impressive. Those skills you just don't find anywhere. So Dave, can you tell me approximately how many black belts and green belts we have? That's really great, 9 black belts. So even through this supply shortage, we're moving forward on initiatives on continuous improvement. We're working on our QMS, our documentation, maintaining our certs. It's really a lot of work, and we got both locations, Kentucky and PA, clicking on all cylinders to the extent that we can, given the fact that every other day a new part is missing that prevents us from building. So I'm hoping that gave everyone a little bit of context. You can see any of us in manufacturing if you need to know more or want to know more about how we do things, or do we have this, that, the other thing. So I'm going to turn this over now to the reluctant wanter Lore, who I made speak in front of everybody today for practice, because it's good for you. And that'll be followed up by Zach. So thank you, everyone, and welcome, Wanter.
Thanks, Brad. Good morning, everyone. So today I'll be talking about the PA manufacturing. Okay. So as you can see, this is the A team. I don't know why Brad insisted that I use that picture. So I'm not sure. So there's Brad. Jerry, he actually works from the Arizona office. And then there's the handsome Wanter. And there's Will, Edward, Andy, Gabe, and Lakat is actually our summer intern. So, yeah, that's the team. Okay, so production RMA. So we are located in the Malvern office, obviously, on the west wing, all the way at the end, near shipping. So production. So aside from just talking about Andy's love life, we do stuff there. So yeah, production. We actually don't build our units in-house. We have a contract manufacturer, EFE, who builds the units, which then ships to us, where we do the final testing, and then we push firmware on them, and then we create equipment records, QA sheets, apply labels, do visual inspections, and once that's done, we ship them out. So that's production in a nutshell. But obviously, it gets more complicated than that. For example, the ME4 and LX5 gets tested on different fixtures that ALC supports. And then we got the FE1 units that gets tested on the Creel system that Chris and Art supports. And then we have Slipstream that gets tested on a different fixture, which Jim Newell supports. And then finally, we have the VHDC stuff, which the humble, kind, gentle soul Keith Sullivan supports. So, yeah. Yes, you are, Keith. So yeah, that's basically production in a nutshell. It really takes a team effort to get the production line, going. So RMA. So how RMA works is, which also takes a team effort. So it starts with customer reporting a problem, which then gets directed to the dev support team. And if they deem that that's an RMA, they send that ticket to Jerry, which then Jerry gives customer forms to fill. If all is good, they ship it to Malvern or Kentucky. And then from there, we'll create an estimate. And if approved, we'll troubleshoot, fix, whatever, and ship it back to the customer. Of course, RMA gets more complicated than that. Also, there are unique issues that we don't know how to solve. And we have to pull from the dev team or the support team or the sales engineer team. So it takes a whole group of people to resolve, a simple issue for just one company. There's many cases, but we're not going to get into that. So what is next for our department? As Paul and Brad mentioned, we are doing dev prototyping, which is basically, in a nutshell, it's, something screwed up, fix it. So that's basically dev prototyping. We do stuff in Altium and SolidWorks as well, but nothing complex. And then remote RMA sites. Right now, currently, we do have one remote RMA site. It's in Brazil, SciTech. They are actually setting one of their guys up for retraining in July, which I will introduce him to some of you guys. As for more remote RMA sites, that's still up in the air. There's no yes or no for that, but just know that it is a thing. All right, so these are some of the products that we, if you walk back to our department, you'll see in our area. Now the FE1, LX5, HDC, Slipstream, and ME4. Maybe by this time next year, there'll be more units up there. But right now, that's what we see every day. Okay. Oh, the slide's weird. So production sales. So just last year in 2021, if you just look at the year-end total number, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but that's quite impressive. We did $13.5 million worth of product just through our little department back there in the Malvern office. Like, that's quite a lot of units. And then right now in 2022, we're almost halfway there. Obviously, the number is a lot higher now since this was made a week ago. Okay, and then some RMA statistics. Okay, so last year in 2021, LX5s was the number one, unit return for RMA, followed by ME4. So that's that. If you look at the other chart, if you look at the yellow portion, that's actually electrical. As of right now, the number one root cause for RMA units is electrical damage. For example, electrical would mean a lot of things like power surge, struck by lightning, customer feeding the breadcrumbs dirty power. It's not something we can technically prevent. It just happens. But there is some positive to that chart. If you look at the ingress portion, if you go back 2 to 3 years ago, that was the number one leading cause of RMAs. And because of the dev team, support team, and sales engineer, that is the least amount of RMAs return. So it really takes a team effort, everyone coming together to resolve an issue, to get products out the door or make customers happy. So yes, that's what we do in production RMA. Thank you.
I'm Cliff, and of course, this is Diana. Yeah. Anyways, it's been very challenging to keep things in production, especially the FE1. And, we currently have a backlog of over 3,000 units, which I think we should really give a hand to the sales team for that, right? But the frustrating thing is that we're really having a hard time making them. We need to ship 600 units by the end of June, and it's looking like we are going to be able to do that. See, she's nodding her head. But we were down. Our line was down from March 22nd until May 22nd. And the primary reason it was down is because we couldn't get the Congatec Q7 SBC. That's a single board computer that goes into the FE1. And it's been really frustrating. They sent us 591 or something like that, and they're supposed to send us 600 more, and they've moved that out.
Everyone cross your fingers for that.
Right. So, but even with all of that, since we've gotten the FE1 line back up and running, this number is even dated. EFE has manufactured roughly 300 FE1s, and we've gotten roughly 200 of them out the door. So, anyways, that's a big success. And Wanter was up here talking about his team and all the people that go into helping us make that happen. And anyways, I'll talk a little more about that later. So the parts that we are having problems getting are parts that everybody in the world wants, really, basically. And you hear on the news about the automotive industry not being able to make cars and whatnot. Well, these are all it's all the same parts. You just can't get anything from Texas Instruments. That's a regulator. It's just really frustrating. And there's a company called Diodes that Incorporated that makes a critical PCIe switch that we have on the FE1. I promised Paul we wouldn't make this too technical, and then there's an Intel i210, and that's everybody in the world uses the i210 for Ethernet networking, and then also lately there's a real-time clock part from ST Micro.
You can cross that one off because we actually found that one last night.
Diana just found 2,000 parts. Yep. And I'm sorry to have to say this, but they were only $12 a piece or something like that. Or yeah, $14 a piece. But
It was a discount.
yeah, and usually we can get these things for like less than $1 or something like that. It's a bummer. Okay, so what did we do to try to get around some of our shortages? And like Wanter was saying, it takes a village. It takes everybody working together. And we've been purchasing these brown market parts, and we really appreciate Paul and Bob signing off on that, because we can't do that. We wouldn't be able to ship it all. We've been working closely with our SBC vendors, Congatec and Seiko, and Diana actually literally is buying parts for those manufacturers. We're also doing that with Compex. We buy the Qualcomm part and ship it to them. Also, but closer to home, we've been making what we call interposer boards. And these are boards where instead of using the real IC, the TI IC that goes onto the regulator, we're getting a linear tech part or something, and we're designing a board that goes onto. And they're very intricate, and we found through experience that these are hard designs, and we are producing the very first boards that have the 3.3 interposer on it. They have shipped from World, and we're going to be making FE1s made with LMBs with the interposer. So, anyways, I'd like to have a big hand to the design team: Dave Haney, Keith, Dave Grund, Jim Croyle, just for helping us make those interposers. Okay, so yep. And then another thing that we're doing is that we redesigned the Lycoming mainboard. The Lycoming mainboard actually has 6 PCIe ports on it. We normally just use 4 for the FE1 2255B, or we use 2 for the Hawk models. So we redesigned the LMB to make a 2-port HMB model. And we were able to design out some of the TI parts and do some clever things. So anyways, we're going to be producing our first HMB-based FE1s in June and shipping them in July. So that's really great. And then now we're also working on another streamlined version of the LMB called the QMB. So basically, to honor the people that have helped us make all this happen, is what we want to, well, actually, first I should say that working on these part shortages is like playing a game of whack-a-mole, okay? So as soon as one part, one part goes away, another one pops up. So, go ahead.
That's the whack-a-mole theory.
So anyways, we actually would like to award whack-a-mole. We actually have whack-a-mole games for, and just to let you know, I was actually going to get whack-a-moles for all of the people on this list, but there was a supply chain issue. They would only let me order 3 at a time. So, Dave Grund, why don't you come up?
Come up and get your whack-a-mole.
Oh, no, wait, I said it wrong. Dave Haney, I'm sorry. Dave Grund, you don't get one. Dave Haney, Garrett Adams, and Zach Wagner, okay? And I definitely should mention Dave Grund. Dave's been very helpful in finding parts and also just the interposer designs. Keith Sullivan has been working on the interposers also. We really appreciate that. Paul Bartholomew, don't get him started on Congatec. Just don't mention that word to him. But Congatec had to ship us new Q7s with a new BIOS, and then also Maria. Everybody in Kentucky too. So, anyways, thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. I'm Chad Mercer, site lead for our information assurance team. I'm going to take a real quick second to just give you a little history of who I am, my team, because we have so many new faces now in the audience. I don't think everyone knows the full history of it. My team and I, we've started developing crypto solutions back beginning in 2000. We developed an ASIC, was targeted for commercial market, and we referred to that as Havasu. From 2000 till 2006, we was a commercial company until we folded into a military group, which was ITT, Excelis, and Harris. From there, we worked until 2016. During that time, from 2014 to 2016, we began working with Rajant on a new military radio, referred to as LX4 SAB. So during that product, Harris decided to actually terminate my team due to an acquisition that they did with Excelis. We also had our technology basic and alive. So that time is when Bob, myself, and a couple others, Mike Rassin, also was able to convince the military to allow us to come over and work with Rajant to continue to support our military radio that we are selling into the Army. And so as part of the Rajant, our first initiative was to really design a replacement module for the Havasu that was in the LX4 SAB. That replacement module was referred to as Wolverine. The Wolverine technology ultimately fed into 3 different programs, and that's what I'll update right now on, is the PT100, the AU100, which is the CMR program, what we're doing with the HBCM, which is a new development effort, and finally the last thing, which is RISM, which is our Rajant Inline Security Module. So one thing you guys may not know is that the big thing that our team does is we don't just develop crypto, we certify crypto. And certifying crypto for the NSA is a significant amount of effort. It takes a lot of practice, it takes a lot of knowledge, it takes a lot of learned knowledge, really, because they subject us to requirements that aren't necessarily black and white. So we have to really understand what the NSA wants us to be able to accomplish from a security perspective, design it the way that we perceive it, and then explain to them how we've done it. And like I say, we've been doing this for many years, so we have a pretty good relationship within NSA to accomplish that. So one of the big things that happened on the PT100 is we did a modular approach. We actually designed a solution. So it's basically a hat-based design. This is the PT100 case. And the intent was for us to be able to certify this at the secret level within the NSA government. If in the past, what we would do is we'd actually certify the radio as an entire unit, which was nice because it made it easy for the NSA to know exactly how to access it, how to use it, et cetera. But the problem that we had is that any time that the RF subsystem would potentially need to be changed, or if we needed to update our breadcrumb software, we'd have to go through a recertification. It's called an ECP. It's an engineering change proposal. That was a costly and a very time-consuming effort. So this initiative, we went in with us saying that we'd like to be able to separate the RF subsystem for multiple reasons. And one of the biggest one is so that we can sell into many different military fielded opportunities. The RF spectrums change depending on where you're fielding at. So if we had to go in and change our RF modules for each different customer, we would always be going through the certification thing. It would always be costing a significant amount of money, and it wouldn't be unsuccessful. So anyway, so that was a new thing for us. The NSA put us into a beta program. Within the module, within this area here, if you look right there, that is the Wolverine crypto module. I can't get into details in here on this presentation, but ultimately, that's what's inside here with additional processing board called the RIM. And we implemented all the necessary security requirements for us to process secret and below data. We have CHVP handling. For those that don't know what that is, this is a crypto high-value product. That's a significant difference than the way that most military products are handled today. A lot of them are actually, they require really security all the time to be around the component. So even when it's fielded, you have to have personnel that are always monitoring at this. With this product, when it's unkeyed, you can store it just like you would like an expensive laptop. You just have to keep inventory. It makes things a lot easier for the Army to really manage it and to deploy it. Let's see, what else? This design is limited to 100 megabits, and it's not because of the technology. It had to be due to the requirements of the interfaces that we designed against. But nonetheless, we did successfully design it. We actually successfully completed our security verification testing. That was our big effort this year, was going through and providing all the collateral, all the documentation, and actually having NSA and witnesses come into our labs and witness all of our testing. We completed that in October, and really what we've been doing now is moving through the Tempest phase. I'll let Darren probably talk a little bit more about that. I think Darren will cover more of the Eagle solution, which is the combination of the PT and the AU100. Once we get through the Tempest issues, the last thing we have to do is what's called PCA, which is a physical configuration audit. That's the very final phase where NSA basically crosses the T's, dots the I's, and then issues us a certification letter. Upon completion of the certification letter, we've already planned one software change, which is an ECP, and all that is to update us to the latest breadcrumb API bypass spec. And we've already actually implemented that with Dave's team, so that's working well. All right, next one, high bandwidth crypto module. So not many people know what this is. Really what it is taking what we've done with Wolverine and extending us into kind of a newer technology that will ultimately get us back to an ASIC. Wolverine has been an FPGA-based solution, which means it's very flexible, it's reprogrammable, but the problem though is it produces a lot of power, it's fairly large size, and we want to basically get into a reduction of size, weight, and power in the solution. The thing is, we're working closely with the Army customer on this design, so because of that, there's a very limited amount of things that we can share, but ultimately, we're taking a Wolverine and a Rescue. Rescue is the Army's implementation of a security module, taking those requirements and those architectures and blending them together into one solution that ultimately will be driven into an ASIC. The path that we're using is Intel technology. I don't know if many of you are aware of it, but Intel does have a fabrication flow that takes their, say, Stratix 10 FPGA architecture, migrates it into an eASIC, which is called an N5X architecture. And by going to an ASIC, you eliminate a significant amount of the power dissipation issues that you have with the FPGA. And so far, that's going very well. We have some new technology that's being wrapped into this. We're adapting to the newest KMI, which is the K-management interface. We also will have multi-channel encryption capability. That's something that's very unique. We don't necessarily need that for Wolverine, but in many military opportunities, you do. The other thing, too, is we're working with them as well as on QR algorithms. That's quantum-resistant algorithms. So we will begin getting our feet wet on which algorithms out there that the government is recommending for future robustness because of quantum computing. I'll give you a real brief look at the architecture. For those that remember Wolverine, this should look very similar. It's just going to be Wolverine kind of on steroids. It's, again, initially based on the Stratix 10. It's an FPGA solution. Up here in the top is the hardened processing subsystem that comes with the component. We don't design that. That's actually there for us to use. So it's 4 ARM quad processors that run majority of our operational software. But down here is the FPGA fabric. This is where we have the multi-channel encryption capability, our transect capability, et cetera. This is what my team is developing as we speak. The eASIC flow basically will take this same design, and it's specifically down here, the fabric part, which is where most of the power dissipation is, and harden that into ASIC cells so that when it's fabricated, it becomes just a small chip. The size, weight, and power reduction, right now these are estimates, but you can kind of see the Stratix 10 on your left is the FPGA solution that Intel provides. It's fairly large, and it produces a significant amount of heat. Ultimately, when we're done, we'll be down to a much smaller package and a much smaller power. So we're going from like 15 watts down to 2 watts. The one thing I want to bring up here, the chip itself is actually going to be significantly smaller, but we're limited because of I/O constraints. This defines our package. There's a lot of grounds and a lot of powers that are required for these solutions. So underneath that package is all just basically balled pins. Okay? All right. Last one, Rajant Inline Security Module. I presented this last time, and really the only thing that I could update is that we're moving well ahead within regards to the FIPS 140-3 certification. Again, for those that don't know what that is, it's a lot of paperwork, it's a lot of documentation, it's a lot of requirements. And what it does is it states that our design operates as specified. It is a secure design, and it cannot be altered in any fashion. This is important for, mostly for military, but it is also very important for commercial. We'll start seeing these requirements, I think, a lot more as we move forward into different designs with our radios. So the intent here was to have an inline module that would basically interface in through our Power over Ethernet connection to any of our breadcrumb radios to instantly upgrade us to a FIPS network. And we had a chance of actually demonstrating and actually really kind of truly testing our unit recently in Yuma It was a last-minute effort, but thanks to Ed and others that were involved in that, we had a chance of getting a couple RISMs put in with FE1s. And the nice thing about it is, as Bob and Paul like to say, it just worked. People didn't even know it was there, which is fantastic. That's the way we want to see it. We integrated with the breadcrumb commander, and it's seamless. What the design kind of looked like is this is an example of a configuration. As you guys can see, the RISM down there at the bottom, it just connects in line with the FE1s. And there, bada boom, your network is already FIPS compliant. This is a kind of an example of what a network would look like. Again, the mesh, we'd have a RISM basically connected into every breadcrumb that's necessary to bring red data into the mesh. You don't have to have a RISM on the breadcrumbs that are used primarily as the meshing relays, but this in essence is the concept. And we're hoping to start selling these products. What I missed to say is we're already actually on the NIAP website, so we can begin selling today, which states that we're actually in certification process. Certification, though, won't occur 100% until the end of this year. Also, because of supply chain issues, we are having difficulty building them, but we're hoping that we'll begin selling these the end of this year and into early next year. So the question was, who is the customers? Currently, right now, what we're looking at in the majority is the foreign military sales. A lot of them are not authorized to purchase these type of components because they're technically ITAR components, which is restricted to America and our allies. So as we start looking, and specifically like because of what's going on in Ukraine, a lot of the Balkan states out there have interest in securing their communication networks. This is a really nice bridge for them to be able to get to that level of security and not have to. All right, thank you, everybody.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Chad. Darren Dragish, I'm just going to speak very briefly on and follow up on what Chad was discussing. So as he mentioned a lot of points already on the Eagle, that is the combination of our, what is our FE1 radio with the hat that he showed you here. And just to highlight, Bob already mentioned the importance of this product, but saving lives in the previous generation product and in the military, and we've all seen the effects and result of it. So everyone can take pride in this work that they're working on. But just to really brief slides, because like Chad mentioned here, we're in a very boring but difficult phase of the project for our certification that we can't really speak to too much. So that's ongoing currently, and everyone has been a huge help in that. Dave Haney's going through it, and Keith jumping in, and Dave Grund helping with get us through Tempest. So we're hoping to have that effort wrapped up by in the coming months. Our contracts for certification ends in September, and then, like Chad mentioned, we have to complete PCA in that time as well. Chad's group has been great at focusing and getting ahead on the documentation side of things. And Garrett and Haney and others have been working on making our documentation up to snuff. So we already have a good head start there, and we aside from the remaining updates to make after Tempest, we'll be able to hopefully very quickly complete PCA. And then we'll be done with our contract at the end, delivering a subset of these units as deliverables to the government. And then we'll move into production phase. So that's the next goal. So basically, just to give you quick overview of the Eagle, where we are right now and where we've been for the last few months has been looking at production, looking ahead for production planning and how we build these. We're going to integrate these together, in Moorhead, Kentucky. So everybody there will obviously be seeing a lot more of this in the coming months. We're currently under plan for programming and test fixtures. That's going to be very important, being able to obviously test all the components of these and put them together. And then also have assembly fixtures, which we have a great start on as well, thanks to Brad Snow and the group, putting those together so we can build these components and get them out. So our production schedule has been staged for some time, but we're building in allotments through the end of this year and then into next year. So we're ready to hit the floor. Radios obviously are a big component of this, all the metal that goes with it. And then as I mentioned, I made these small so nobody can scrutinize them, but we, especially the schedule here, but we have a whole board assembly integration plan where the components come together from Arizona and from Malvern into Kentucky to be built up and assembled, tested, and then shipped out the door. So just speaking more to the radio side of things, and I know the radio group will follow up with this because they've been kind of obviously instrumental and key in this development. But right now, with what we're going ahead with the base unit, it is a 4431. We have configured these, built these up, and tested them in lab. So there's two 4.8 radios. They're 3x3. We're actually starting with 2x2 in the base Eagle configuration to go out the door, and then also include a single 3.6 card, which is also 2x2, and the 1.4 as well. And those are the converted radios. There's some specs here, but this will be our base configuration just to get out until we know what the customers actually require and what they want. So. The beauty of this, as Chad already mentioned, is going through certification just on the hat. We're then able to be a lot more flexible with the base radio unit. And obviously, if and when we get customer requirements, and if we know when other radios are needed or other frequencies, we can then adapt that a lot quicker and build up other radio configurations that we're working on. And just to show you what the internal looks like on the radio, you'll see our new radio designs there with the heat sinks. One thing to mention, so as you can see, I just wanted to throw in some of the test models. So as we go through this process, there's obviously a lot of behind the scenes work, and we're constantly either making prototypes and testing, and the development team does a fantastic job with getting models through. So I just wanted to give you a taste of what some of the variations that we have made already. We obviously went out the door for testing with the 4848. We did a B model, which had the 4.9 variation in it from Vismo. And then you see the 4431 up there for the FE1, which is then in turn become the AU. And also, I know we have a 4440 planned as an upgrade replacement, so that will likely be coming, but we haven't actually put that together yet. And that's it. We'll follow up with questions afterwards. If anyone needs, talk to any of us, and after we're done. Thank you, everyone.
Hello. So I'm just going to give a brief overview of kind of what the support team's been doing the last year or two. We do a lot more than just customer support. Of course, that's the main thing we do, but we do a lot of other things as well. And that includes QA testing, hardware validation, which is a lot of different things. We've been doing thermal testing, shock and vibe testing. We do accessory testing, field testing, and that's out in the field next to the office most of the time. We've also done a lot of development for different things. Different members are on different teams other than support, such as like Zach's on VC Commander or different things. And we've also worked a lot on different documentation things. And BC Assurance is a product that we launched back in April of last year, April 1st. Basically, partners can buy hours as well as different reports, which I'll let the management and monitoring team talk more about later. But basically, we have 10 partners who've purchased 158 hours. 6 partners have actually used some hours, used about 50 hours. KMSSs, which are free, we've sent 94 of those. Those are free as long as you've bought some sort of hours. We've had 9 KMDRs purchased by 5 different partners. 3 of those have actually been sent out and used. And someone wanted me to point out that at the Partner Summit in Arizona, apparently there are several partners that have been complimenting the paid support program. And also I have a couple other things. So out of those hours that have been used so far, there were about 120 technical tickets opened, which some of those aren't going to use hours because they include different issues that have happened that are kind of firmware related that we have to fix on our own. There have been 113 country code requests, basically recertifying radios to the country that they've been shipped to. We've had 80 account issues. We've had 7 feature requests, 40 sales inquiries, 50 documentation requests, and then we've had 24 requests related directly to BC Enterprise, 18 for BC Commander, and 5 for BC Connector. And that's basically since we've started paid support last year. So that's all I've got.
So Rajant mesh networks work great until they don't. This phenomenon is called network drift. Whether it be hardware issues from bad Ethernet cable to a tilted antenna, or changes to RF conditions, they just built a giant metal skyscraper, to mistakes in network expansion, like an integrator missing a key setting change before deployment. All of these attribute to network drift. BC assurance is the idea that with enough data and monitoring, we can prevent network drift from happening in the first place. Our snapshots hold a plethora of data from our customers, but 2 to 3 years ago, we were only using a fraction of that data, and only a small number of people knew how to use that data. The need for easy-to-read, actionable reports from this data was great, and BC Assurance has delivered. We currently have 3 distinct reports. Our automated, in-depth, highly technical internal report used to help the support team is called InstaAcker, named after our very own Dave Acker. Thank you, Chris Graves, for coming up with that awesome name. Our automated top 10 statistical report for customers to review and identify their own issues is called a Kinetic Mesh Snapshot Summary, or KMSS. And our recommendation-centered, immediately actionable report, created by a team of several highly talented engineers and peer-reviewed, is deemed our Kinetic Mesh or Detailed Report, or KMDR. All 3 of these are available right now, and BCA is currently being sold along with the support hours as one of Rajant's current sources for recurring revenue. But we believe this offering can be improved, and we are still only using a fraction of the data that we have. So we set out on improving not only the quantity of data we can use, but the quality of our reports as well. So with the caveat that these are capabilities and still need to be discussed with Paul and Marty and the sales team about how to be utilized, our 3 biggest upcoming improvements are an internal snapshot database paired with an improved snapshot parser, allowing us to perform ad hoc, on-demand historical investigations and data-driven decision-making via data science and machine learning techniques to not only aid in improving site-specific meshes, but also improving our breadcrumb products. We also have a spreadsheet version of InstaAckers and KMSSs, the latter including pre-made charts to aid in determining problem areas, and an improved KMSS KMDR report based on HTML and CSS, allowing us to add in specific partner branding. So here are some examples of the spreadsheet and the new look for the customer reports. As you can see from the spreadsheet visuals, you can immediately point out outliers and possible places for investigation, and the improved report visuals give a more premium feel. And Marty said you guys would get a kick out of this next one. So this is an example of the partner branding possibilities. Apparently this is Wayland Corporation from the Alien movies. We're able to easily change the color schemes and the logos to allow partners to truly integrate BCA in their current offerings. I believe BC Assurance has a bright future here, and I hope this sparks some people's interest in our offering. I think next is going to be Mike to talk about M&M's future and our visions.
I see a lot of new faces, so I thought I'd spend just a little bit of time talking about the history of the management and monitoring group. Now, listening to several people talk, you hear the phrase, "it just works." And it does, it just works. Take a breadcrumb, you hook them together, or you hook them up, power them up, you look at the LED, it's green, you're good. Well, engineers are a bit cynical, a bit curious. They want to see, oh, how is it working? When breadcrumbs were initially deployed, they had no UI. There was no management software. But people wanted to see, were they connected? How were they connected? So then along came BC View, and this stuff was before me. Then engineers being engineers, they wanted to tweak this setting, and they wanted to change that setting, and they wanted to turn this knob. Along came a software application called BC Admin, which allowed them to do some things. Well, they want to do more. They want to see what's happening. They want to change settings and see what effect it has. So along came BC Commander with much more extensive features. And they wanted better visibility. They wanted to see maps. They wanted to see analysis of their mesh network. After BC Commander came BC Connector. BC Connector is basically a proxy. It allows you to more easily connect to larger mesh networks. And finally was BC Enterprise. And BC Enterprise is a time series database and graphing system that shows mesh information over time. So that's sort of where we are today. When I came on board 10 years ago, BC Commander had some features, but we've added lots of features over time. And features come from customers. Customer wants X. Features come from sales. Sales wants X, Y, and Z. Features come from the firmware team. We need to be able to configure something. Features come from engineers themselves. We sit around and say, oh, it would be cool if. But all these things have been built into BC Commander, and in some ways we're running out of things to put in there, and we want to be smart with our development. So what we started last year was a data mining project where we're pulling in configuration from snapshots, analyzing it, and seeing what parameters people are changing. What parameters are people resetting? We're going to be slicing and dicing this data to help us understand how to configure larger networks, how to configure smaller networks, how to configure networks that are dense or that are spread out. So that's one of the things we're working on. Oh, we had a new BCE release this year. We finally pushed it over the finish line. It was 2 years in the making, 3 years in the making. We finally released in February. New dashboards, improved UI, better reports, much more stable product. Going forward, we want to continue to focus on ease of use. One of the big things we want to focus on is bulk config. There are some restrictions on configuring multiple breadcrumbs at the same time. A month ago, when I was flat on my back with COVID, I had this epiphany. I know how to do it. So going forward, one of the things that's going to be coming in next release of BCC is cross-model and cross-version configuration, which should be quite helpful. We are adding, to help with UI design, we are adding telemetry to BCC, so that we can pull in data to find out what features people are using and what features maybe we can get rid of, hopefully. Let's see. One of the other things we're working on is to include more statistics within BC Commander. We're going to incorporate some live stats information. Each breadcrumb provides us something on the order of 2,400 data points that right now we really don't expose. They're there, you can look for them, but we really don't expose them. So we're going to be adding some features into BC Commander to summarize that information. At some point, BC Commander is going to fall over. As meshes get bigger, as meshes get more complex, it will not be able to handle the load. Now, having said that, a couple years ago, we left a simulator running overnight, and we got BC Commander up to 34,000 breadcrumbs. It was slow, but it worked. Just recently, Lindsay found out that BC Commander will operate on an old Pentium with 4 gig of RAM, and it actually is usable. But we want to have this thing we're calling Rajant Hub, which is going to be a collection of services that allow us to offer things that you can't do in a regular application, things that always on is required. We would like to give a better API, whether that's a REST API or an MQTT. We'd like to automate configuration going forward for configuration templates and automating the push out of configuration to devices. We could offer a pub-sub system because every user wants to know 2 pieces of data about a breadcrumb, but every user wants to know 2 different pieces of data. And finally, we're looking at SNMP improvements. There have been improvements put in the firmware just recently, and sometime later this summer, we will be issuing a white paper that explains how to use SNMP with SolarWinds and a popular open source package called Zabbix. It'll be a how-to, it'll have templates, it will just make using SNMP easier with breadcrumbs. And yes, that's it.
My name is Zach Pater. I'm one of the many members of the M&M team. I'm just going to talk to you about some of the new stuff coming up. It's pretty cool stuff. One of the features we just finished up, I think last week sometime, was BC Commander can now submit help desk tickets. So any of your partners working out in the field, any of the SCs helping out anyone, they can just submit tickets straight to BC Commander or straight to the help desk team, and they'll get an email confirmation and everything. It's pretty seamless. We also improved the topo view. It can get a little messy sometimes, so we implemented a new version. It's toggleable. You'll be able to use the full icons or these new simple icons. They're pretty neat. They're gonna hopefully reduce the noise for really large meshes or meshes that are really spread out. Dave Acker actually requested this feature a couple months ago, and the snapshot he used was so dense that there were like 3 breadcrumbs on top of each other just about every mile. It was pretty crazy. So hopefully that'll help out. One of my personal favorite is the retry failed snapshot downloads. We run into this on the support team. I'm sure the SEs all the time, failed downloads. So now you'll get a notification of which ones failed and whether or not you want to actually retry them. Thanks, Tim, wherever you are. I don't know where Tim's at, but thanks, Tim. And then, of course, we have more mesh mapper improvements coming down the pipeline, thanks to all the SE feedback, and it hopefully will make it a little bit more seamless. We're adding LTE and RPT integration into mesh mapper. We're adding more receive signal information for the peers, and we're adding a new CSV output so that customers can do their own analysis, because right now they don't really have access to the data that we use to generate mesh mappers, so hopefully that can help out a little bit. I have some pretty pictures for y'all, so I'm pretty much done talking. I just wanted to show you the simple icons are on the right. They're just a small orb with some, just very minimal icons on the side. So not all of the icons are available, but you can toggle between them if you need more. On the left is the ticket submission form from BCC. Just the main one, just a simple email form that takes all of the necessary information that we need on the customer support side of things. All right, and then here's an example of this, what you'll see during the snapshot retries. You can see on the left, it'll tell you exactly which breadcrumbs failed, and it'll give you a nice, you can hit OK, upload, or retry failed downloads. So for example, if one of those breadcrumbs, you unplug, you don't have to retry, but, and it'll actually notify you when you cancel it too, so that you don't, when you hit the cancel button, it will say, hey, these ones won't be included in your snapshot at all. And of course, here's some of the examples of the mesh mapper improvements. We added a whole new set of pins for live trace information, so that we can differentiate between RPT, LTE, and just normal Instamesh peering. And then there's an example of the new table descriptions for each of these pins. So those of you who have actually opened Mesh Mapper and clicked and done things, that's the kind of information you'll get from these new pins, additional to the old ones. And here's an example of the CSV file, nothing crazy. Just putting this out there so that you guys can get a good idea where you might be able to use it. And then, of course, here's an example of something we saw. Phil Hendricks was out using Mesh Mapper to help a customer, and we thought this was super cool. This is a program called Global Mapper. It's like a Google Earth clone, but apparently better because it does three-dimensional topography, and Mesh Mapper integrates with it seamlessly. And this is just a really good example of where and how it can be used in the field, and I just thought it was cool, so we included it. This did lead to breadcrumb sales. Yes, you can see there's a big red center there. They need breadcrumbs there. All right, that's pretty much it. That's what you guys can look forward to in 1125 for BCC.
So we actually got a brand new state-of-the-art facility in the Kentucky office. We moved to a brand new building out on the outskirts of Moorhead. We have a manufacturing floor, our own inventory room, a shipping area, a whole development side for the dev team. We have a patio that's got a grill on it and everything like that. And so, yeah, we're pretty proud of it. We're excited to be out there.
All right, so over the past year, we've had a lot of accomplishments. One of my favorite accomplishments is that we had our ISO recertification audit with 0 nonconformances found, and this was the 4th consecutive year with 0 nonconformances. Also earlier this year, since we moved from the new facility, we had to have a Northrop Grumman process audit, and we passed that as well in March. So we are good to go working on Northrop Grumman products in Kentucky facility. We had our yearly inventory audit in December with 0 nonconformances, zero nonconformances found. We kind of spoke on this a little bit earlier. I believe Brad did. We've also gotten a lot of Six Sigma certifications. If you guys aren't familiar with what Six Sigma is, it's statistical tools to improve manufacturing processes. And so right now, as it stands, we have 9 black belt, Six Sigma black belts, and 3 Six Sigma green belts. So I believe Dave Keaton is planning on expanding this into the Malvern office. So this is going to be a really good thing for everyone to be involved in. We've also been voted one of the best places to work in Kentucky 2 years in a row.
So on to our personnel of our manufacturing department in Kentucky. Pictured here, we have our new intern, Jody Caudle, our new front desk worker, Megan B. Kraft. We have Travis Pettit, Sydney Floyd, Austin Clark, Dave Keaton, Zach Wagner, myself, Caitlin Muncie, Logan Pennington, John Lacey, and not in the picture is Ryan Lacey. But that consists of our team down in the Kentucky facility for manufacturing. And just some of our products that we produce in the Kentucky office and keep inventory for is our ES1, our JR3, our new product, our FE1s, and the KM3. Those are the units that we keep in-house and we manufacture there. And now I'm going to speak on a few of the updates on a couple of our radios that we have.
Our ES1, our manufacturing team's been working with Vismonet, the manufacturer of the radio, the ES1, to troubleshoot new models due to supply chain issues, which Cliff has talked on a little bit today. We've all seen issues with procurement over the past couple of years. Our Creole team has been working with ES1 testing criteria, as well as our quality team, who has been working with our inspection criteria. So that's kind of our update on our ES1 model. Oh, and the ES1 is our top selling product out of the Moorhead facility.
So with the FE1, in the beginning of the project, we began working with just inventory management and procurement. And so as time has went on, that's evolved into risk parts procurement, sort of like what Cliff and Diana were speaking about earlier. And we've also been doing sub-assembly production, which will save a lot of time at the contract manufacturer. We mainly just do the sub-assemblies of like the button the button reset and our radio cards with the heat sinks. It saves a lot of time with the contract manufacturer for us to go ahead and take care of that. And good news, great news, the FE155, 5050A will be the first FE1 produced solely at Rajant. And we're going to be doing that later on this month. And after this was submitted, I actually found out we're also going to be doing the 2450As. So that's exciting. All right, and last but definitely not least, these are our manufacturing production sales from Kentucky. So my favorite part about this is you see 2021 shipments were 6.7 million. And we are so close to already doing that in June this year.
Does anybody have any questions?
Questions for the end?
Okay.
All right, thank you guys.
Thanks for having us.
Good morning, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dave Grund. I'm the Director of Product Development here. I oversee the hardware team and been excited to work closely with our software and manufacturing teams to bring you a number of new products that will be coming out in the second half of this year. And then later we'll get to hear from Dave Acker about a number of continuing development projects that we have for the year ahead after that. I'd also like to, just before I get started, really take the opportunity to thank the manufacturing and the procurement teams, particularly with Cliff and Diana, for all the hard work that they have been doing in continuing to find parts for us. They've really made it possible for development to keep getting these products done and really managing the fires for us. So it's been a tremendous effort. Thank you so much for that. So the first new product I get to share that's going to be coming out end of the third quarter, beginning of the fourth quarter, is the ES1 2450IS. As Jeff mentioned yesterday, September-ish, that's Q3. August, September. As Jeff mentioned yesterday, oil and gas is one of our key growth areas that we're pursuing, in addition to others. And the need for a lower cost, particularly a lightweight Zone 1 or C1D1 hazardous environment breadcrumb has been a real lack of placement that we've had in the product market. We did have a solution that we've been selling a few of. I don't know if any of you will have seen it. It's probably about the size of 4 FE1s and weighs about 50 pounds. It's this giant explosion-proof box that folks have had to put up. And so the call from sales for us was really to figure out a way to make a size that someone can reasonably carry up, put on a wall, and work in there and bring the cost down. So to move into Zone 1 and C1D1, we chose to partner with a company called Selexi that the sales team introduced us to. The reason for that is because there are strict controls over the manufacturing, and as we're doing in Kentucky, it takes a couple of years to get that all together. So Selexi is certified for producing these hazardous location equipment, and they produce the housing that we've put and converted an ES1 into. So the 2450 IS will be coming out. We were able to achieve lightweight. The stainless steel model is less than 13 pounds, and I believe the aluminum one is close to 10. We hit a sub 7K MSRP, and it's going to be coming with C1D1 for North America, and I believe it's Australia, and then ATEX Zone 1 as well for the rest of the world. There's a limited number of ports to the case that exists, and so it's a 2x2 5 gigahertz radio and a 1x1 2.4 gig, and as I mentioned, that end of Q3, Q4. So I'd just like to thank the team for working all on that, as you can see here, and our partners at Selexi. Everyone's put in a tremendous amount of work, and we look forward to seeing that come out and lead to great oil and gas sales there. Next, I'd like to introduce Amber Meyer, who's going to come up now.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Amber Meyer. I'm here to talk about two of our projects that we've been working on. The first one is the LTE breadcrumb. It finally has an official name and it exists. Unlike last year, it was much more in prototype. Now we actually have units that are out around the world, although it's not quite in final production yet. The LTE breadcrumb has been an idea in Rajant's mind for a long time. And within the last recent years, customers have been asking for it more and more, and they're really interested in implementing it in their minds. We have found that some of our competitors who have solely LTE networks aren't as successful as they had hoped. And this product really allows us to sell that we're bridging the best of both technologies. We're combining our fantastic mesh networking with the connectivity that we have on our phones, which people are very familiar with and feel have a high reliability. We're using a Sierra Wireless high-end radio module, and we're putting it in our top-of-the-line Peregrine breadcrumb. Let's see. Right now, we actually do have a handful around the world in demos and compliance testing. Over there, I have pictures from a demo in Australia. I think Phil Hendricks did. And he had the clients with him as well. They're very impressed with our UI and BCC and being able to see the network and configure it and actually see where the connections were happening between mesh and LTE. And on his report, there's also a really neat map where he showed exactly where mesh was connecting and where LTE was connecting. So you could see where he went outside of the mesh network zone, and then it was solely LTE connection. And that's part of the beauty of the system is in LTE, where LTE isn't there, there's mesh networking and vice versa. And when they're all there, then it can really just choose the best and fastest connection at any time. We'll be selling it first in Australia, where we're currently working our way through, Shockey's working our way through the compliance process. And then after that, we'll work towards Canada and Europe and wherever else sales wants. Okay, that's all I have for the LTE model. But the next model, Algonquin, is still in prototype phase. It's our development name for it. This is a product that we've been excited about for a long time and we've had a lot of people ask for. We finally have a very small, very low-cost breadcrumb. We're targeting the warehouse market, and then we have a secondary focus on drone and robotics. And this is the size of it. Yeah. This is a case designed by Jim Croyle, and the design of the PCB we have outsourced to 8 devices. We're working with them very closely to get exactly what we want in the design. Right now, they are manufacturing a handful of prototypes for us, and I expect to get them by the end of this month, and we'll be able to start making them into real breadcrumbs, and then hopefully get them out to demo as well. Last year, I think this product was also introduced, like the idea of it was introduced in All Hands. But it was still very much in the idea phase. We had sent a bunch of bids out, but in, I think, September of last year, we finally got this amazing bid from 8 Devices, who we've been wanting to work more closely with for a long time, and they've been excellent partners. As you can see, we do expect to have some units for sale this year, pending any possible part shortages, but 8 Devices has been trying to get ahead of that, and we plan on 500 for this year and at least 1,000 for next year. And here you can see the actual PCB, which I think is relevant because we do plan on selling this in an OEM design a lot of the time. Jeff has told me that some of the customers will take it right out of the case. But for the ones who do want a case, we have this excellent metal design that'll help with the heat sinking. And honestly, it looks fantastic. And the PCB is really low cost. It's like definitely the lowest one that we have. It costs $100 per board, which is unheard of in any of our other projects. It still will have the industrial temperature range, except for the first 500, which we're having to use commercial parts. But the really cool thing I think about this is the fact that it has 2 radios. The comparison point that I have a picture of right there is the DX2 and the Algonquin. And I don't know how many of you have seen the DX2, but it's tiny and blue. But it only has 1 radio, so it's only so useful. And having something small with 2 radios is extremely useful, especially since it's configurable on the go. There's a combo 245 gigahertz radio, and then there's a separate 5 gigahertz radio. So the customer will be able to decide what they want and configure it for the best possible network. And that's all I have.
Good morning. So we are adding new ES1 models to the ES1 family. The ES1 5050CS and the OEM version, ES1 5050 CSC. This is the ES1 5050CS, practically identical to the existing ES1 2450R. Only the antenna ports, the 2.4 antenna ports are labeled as 5 gigahertz. This model has 2 radios. Each one is 2x2 MIMO, 300 megabits per second. They both support 4.9 and 5 gigahertz. So these are combined spectrum radios. So both radios both support 4.9 and 5 gigahertz. 29 dBm combined transmit power, very typical for our high transmit power radio modules. And it's going to be compatible with all the standard ES1 accessories, all kinds of cables, power supplies, mounts, etc. So a customer that has used the ES1 2450R should be able to transition to this one with very little, difficulty. We are certifying the ES1 5050CS for FCC, then IC, that's Canada, and CE, which covers most of the European countries and around Europe. The FCC filing was done a few weeks ago. Now we are waiting for FCC to give us the final grant so that it can become official. We have entered all the FCC certified power values in our model DB already, expecting that these are the final. And then when 1125 is released, hopefully by the end of July, and the certification is available, this will become fully official. So this supports 4.9 gigahertz, which the ES1 2450R didn't support because we didn't go through the certification for 4.9. And that's specifically FCC 4.9. It's 28 dBm certified transmit power, which is quite high, close to the limit. Just for comparison, the ME4 4950R was certified at 23 dBm for the 4.9 gigahertz band, so 5 dB, which is significant improvement. And for 5 gigahertz, we have all the bands, Uni 1, Uni 2A, Uni 2C, Uni 3, all of them certified. And and they are relatively high power. Uni 3 is at 28 dBm, which is again close to the limit, which is 30. And others are about 20 dBm, which is considered good. Canada is very similar to FCC. That one is pending. Hopefully soon after the FCC grant, we'll have Canada. And also C is pending. There is a lot of paperwork right now going on. So we are giving priority to FCC so that can be done and we can start selling for FCC, but IC and C will be coming soon after. So this is the OEM version. This is the the top view. Here is another view. So the OEM version is basically functionally identical to the non-OEM version. A couple differences. It doesn't have an enclosure, obviously. All the connectors are PCB style connectors so that the customers can easily interface to the product. The heatsinks are flat. If you open a regular ES1 inside, you'll see some fin heatsinks, but you cannot easily interface with a fin heatsink. So these are flat and the customer should be easily able to interface with the heatsinks and remove the heat. And we have MMCX antenna connectors, so it's up to the customer to get the appropriate MMCX to whatever cables to connect their antennas. And the one difference with the ES15050 CSC, we didn't have module certifications for the OEM ES12450RE. In this case, though, the module certifications that we obtained for the non-OEM product also apply to the OEM product. So that will help the customer get the certifications done a lot more quickly by utilizing the existing module certifications. That's it. Thank you.
All right, how's it going? I've been asked to represent the team that worked on Perkiomen to present Perkiomen to you. What is Perkiomen? Perkiomen is this. You probably saw this at last year's All Hands, okay? The idea was that we were taking the FE1 platform and we were going to make a 2 radio variant of the product. So what's interesting is that this time last year, the package was decided, form factor was decided, feature set was decided, but we didn't have any boards yet. So that was my job, and that was Chris Graves' job to develop the board set for Perkiomen. So essentially, the idea with Perkiomen is it kind of fits the space that ME4 is in now. You know, like ME4 is essentially the performance of an LX5, except fewer radios. Interestingly, ME4 came first, and then we made an LX5 from that, but that's history. So the ideas are that this is a more efficient implementation of FE1 in that it's lower cost. We've taken out any of the parts that were not needed for a design that supports only 2 radio interfaces. And another thing that has been touched on by several people throughout the presentation is that getting parts is unbelievably difficult. So at the design stage, we put a lot of effort into avoiding parts that were hard to get. All right, let's see. All right, so another fun fact about Perkiomen is Perkiomen is a very derivative product, not only of the original Lycoming, but the test bed for all of the changes that we made on Perkiomen is the Hawk mainboard, because it was a similar problem. So the Hawk mainboard was, again, a product, a design cycle of circumstance. We had difficulty getting parts for the Lycoming mainboard. Actually, we were up and running on the Perkiomen development, and then we all got together in Cliff Cole's office, and it became, oh my God, how are we going to make Lycoming boards in Q3 of 2021. So we actually got a jump on making decisions about, hey, we don't need this diodes incorporated PCIe switch. We don't need the USB hub that's in the design. We pulled out about $27 in silicon alone to make Hawk, and then Hawk is the baseline of the Perkiomen. Where the Perkiomen differs from Hawk is on Lycoming and Hawk mainboard, there is a separate printed circuit board assembly that is the DC-DC power supply. So what do I mean by that? Well, all of our products have to take a big voltage, 56 volts PoE, and they need to buck it down or reduce it to something that the system can run on. On Lycoming and Lycoming and Hawk, that's 12 volts. On Perkiomen, we go directly to 5 volts, and then from 5 volts we make 3.3 volts. So the power supply design of Perkiomen is a lot simpler. What's cool about Perkiomen is the reference design that I found from Analog Devices is an 802.3 AT-PD controller, which means that not only did I find an off-the-shelf working power supply design, but it had all of the controller functions built in to be standard compliant with 802.3 BT and AT switches and mid-span PoEs. Oh, and as a bonus, they also figured out how to make it work from passive PoE too. So I didn't have to do anything other than copy what they did. I'm a fraud. So now, where a lot of work went into the Perkiomen board set is a lot of decisions were made for me, and I was working with some really clever or clever people who insisted that a lot of stuff couldn't change. And there were good reasons for that. There's a lot of work that went into the boot I/O processor that is common to all the Hawk, Peregrine, FE1 architectures. This is where Dave Haney brought a tremendous amount of value to Rajant and Paul Bartholomew and Fred. There is this guy right here is called a system on a chip. And what that does is that brings order to the chaos. There are startup characteristics that are defined for the Q7, but none of them are reliable. So what Dave Haney figured out was, you know what? I don't want to deal with all these inconsistencies that I find in data sheets, and I'm going to make an architecture that's just guaranteed to work at power up. Now, in order to make the software development more efficient, it was important that I did not change the pinout of that device, which has over 100 I/O functions on it. So I spent about 2 months of my life in this 1 inch of space between the I/O processor and the Q7 processor, figuring out how to cross everything together and connect it up. But the end benefit of that was that the same firmware that runs, or the same embedded code that runs on all of the other products also works on Perkiomen. So why does that matter? Well, here's where it mattered. I gave Perkiomen board set, Rev1 board set to Paul Bartholomew about 2 weeks ago. And within 30 minutes, it was flashed with our firmware, and it was meshed to our network. It just worked. So putting all the, yeah. And so I'm pointing that out to some of the other developers is like, it really is important to like not reinvent the wheel sometimes. It's important to accept the constraints that other people give you and make them work. Because in the end, you're saving time. So with the Perkiomen board set, there's not a lot, I'll say, special code running on it. So every time there is a change made in order to implement a new feature or to take care of a bug, This thing just comes along for the ride. It doesn't need special attention in order to stay consistent with the other products that are in the platform. The other thing that we were able to do is Brad Snow very generously gave me 4 by 5 inches to fit all of these components onto the board. We didn't make the board any bigger. The only thing that we did was we added one mounting hole above the top of the board in order to improve it for ruggedization and improve the anticipated performance with vibration. So you can see, I can rifle through these really fast. I mean, Perkiomen is, it's half the size of Hawk. That was the idea. And if I had an ME4 up here, I'd be able to show you that the Perkiomen form factor that it came up was really roughly close to the size of an ME4. So what's a Perkiomen about? Well, there was a product team headed by Cliff and by Dave Acker, Dave Grund and others that defined a feature set based on some really important metrics. These guys were smart. They looked at what sells. So rather than trying to make a product that could be anything, this exercise was more about, wait a minute, what do we really need? So what we need is a product that can be configured with the same 5 gigahertz radios that have these awesome high power certs that we use on the FE1, the same 2.4 radio, you don't need a mid-span PoE with this product. You can power it directly off of a switch. More importantly, you can power it off of an AT switch, and they're way more common than BTs because BTs are really high power. And we also included the USB 2.0 interface because that's useful for things like firmware updates and just some of the maintenance operations and adding GPS and other things of that nature. Do I have anything else to say? It's the same size. I really do want to give credit to, I'm up here talking about this product, but really this is the work of a lot of people. Cliff Cole put this whole thing together as far as organizing the original team, making the business case for it, doing these incredible presentations to management to really justify doing the project in the first place. He really did a wonderful job in that role and help make this happen. This whole architecture is derivative from the work of other people. Dave Haney, Jim Croyle, Dave Grund, Dave Acker were really the original architects of this wonderful platform that we've been selling over the past 2 years. Without Paul Beatty and Fred Bowen, they really have the most knowledge of what's going on under the hood with any of the devices that are in the architecture. Brad Snow really knocked it out of the park with the packaging on this design. I'll take some credit as the designer of the main board. Chris Graves worked on the Perkiomen front panel. There's some other people I wanted to mention too. Travis Miller and Garrett Adams helped me out during the schematic verification, make sure that I wasn't missing anything. Amber Meyer helped me with the board bring up, and we also developed a PCB tracker that we're using now during the hardware development in order so that we know where boards are, what state they're in, what reworks have been applied to each of the boards. That will help with any board change. Also, Will Johnson has been really critical with helping to build any of the prototypes and making special cables, and I'm out of time, so thanks a lot.
Hi, I'm Fiore Scana. My presentation is not going to be nearly as interesting as all the ones preceding it, and this is going to be pretty clean cut. So the universal mount was the idea that in the field, we have often run into the good enough effect with a lot of customers when it comes to doing pole mounting and the like, and flat mounting solutions. And so some of the solutions that we did offer were limited in the fact that it would be more or less you have a single setup option for what you could do for a specific radio that we made. And that's good and all, but if it doesn't sell, it's not worth much. So the universal mount was the idea to instead step away from making it for specific products and make one that would work with the FE1 and have that one on presentation. So this is a use of more or less application for FE1, LX5, and as you saw for Keith, the Perkiomen. And it's a solution that will work if you have metric M6 screws on that T-slot. It'll mount more or less up and down. You can do different configurations of your antennas, sliding them back and forth. You can take off your FE1, leave everything else, and put up a new one. And it's currently priced at $250. And that's an important goal because in the past, we've had much larger solutions that have cost or would cost customers up to potentially $600. And in the field, there's a lot easier and simpler ways for customers to put things on a pole than it is to pay $600 for a solution they wouldn't use. So instead, the universal mount was the idea to let's downsize and make something that does have a lot of utility, doesn't cost as much, and does work with all of the units that we currently offer. And so that's pretty much it. If you do have any questions, or was that for later, Suzanne? No. There we go, 2 minutes.
Hi, everyone. My name is Matthew Harden. I'm from the Moorhead crew over in the engineering side. So, space mesh. Really, in mesh in space. So, I'm just going to go over an overview of the project. I'm not going to go into gritty details. It's more like, hey, this is what we did, this is why we did it, and this is what we got out of it. So, it's the phase 1 of the project itself. What that means is all the stuff we used is terrestrial stuff, so don't expect to see space level equipment, because that's not what it is. We did it in conjunction with MSU and CST, which are pretty much the same entity, just one is privately owned and one is a public school. And there is a possibility of phase 2, and we're still writing the architectural updates for phase 2 this month. So here you can see all the hardware. Ooh, looks all pretty, right? Really, we just fit on the SMP processor, and we also selected the 2 transceivers. They're the 60 gigahertz microtick links, and they're just reboxed into some like aluminum casing to make them look spacey. Official term there. On your left, you can see the cabling kind of setup. So we did like a cabled setup to all the SMP processors to test that Instamesh actually worked on the SMP processors. Because it's not our hardware, it's obviously just generic hardware that we put it onto. And we got about like a little over a gig as far as throughput for doing like node to multi-node, so non-direct. And then on the left, you can see all the 3 flat sats put together. So, and our demonstration was on a football field, but not a AAA title. So we did it on MSU's football field. And what we did is we had 3 different tests. We had a node-to-node test, a node-to-multi-node test, and then we also had the ground station to multi-node to ground station. I've only shown the node-to-node and multi-node data because the ground stations weren't performing as well as we thought they should, mostly because they were like flat plane antennas going at an orthogonal direction. So let's see here. Yeah. So the data results are only for the 60 gig links linking up together. They're not the cabled results. And so here are the results. So node to node, we got TCP with 740 around. And then the UDP, we did 645. And then node to multi-node, we saw a drastic drop in performance, mostly because when we did testing on the microtick links themselves, when we performed UDP, we had a lot of like drop packets, and that was using their own native program to do it. And then on the TCP, we had a lot of retransmits that occurred when trying to use the microtick links. So for future development, obviously we're gonna source some space hardware if we need it. And also the transceivers cannot go in space either because they are like earthbound. And we'll have to look at pointable transceivers as well as either laser or 60 gigahertz transceivers that are fit for space. That's all I have.
Hey everybody, Dave Actor here. I'm going to talk about some of our future radios looking forward. When I say future, it means these things are all subject to change, but we'll tell you the plan, give you a sense of where things are headed. So biggest thing coming up, 802.11ax, also known as Wi-Fi 6. One of the big changes with Wi-Fi 6 is that it also includes 2.4. 2.4 kind of got left out of the party for 802.11ac. We'll also have 5 gigahertz upgraded. And then also something new, it's pretty exciting, is 6 gigahertz. I always say to people, spectrum wins. If you have the free spectrum, it's going to make a huge difference. So for us to be able to get into 6 gigahertz is really going to help. We're planning pretty high power, 27, 28 dBm per chain, 2x2 like we usually have. And you can see here some of the benefits of AX at close range. Just higher data rates, even at the same channel bandwidths. There's a couple other new AX techniques that improve that performance, OFDMA. This MU-MIMO, we think this is going to help in the case where you have a common enmeshing, where you have multiple streams going on simultaneously. We think we can do possible an FE1 class system that's completely AX based because now the 2.4 can be covered. Other future radios going on, we've been developing our own radios. Steve Pappas here has been leading that work along with Issa over there. And you can see we are covering the spectrum. So again, this is mostly military targeted, where we really want to be able to have radios anywhere that people need it. So some of these are prototype phase, they're not in full production, but we want to have them at least ready so that when we hit those projects and they come back and say, oh, well, we need frequency X, we can do it. As was mentioned earlier, for example, in the CMR program, we may run into a program where they pull out frequencies that we haven't currently built in the 4431. We can switch out that bottom half with some of these new frequencies. So a little more detail. Where we are now, we've done 5. And these are frequencies outside of what's in the 4431 that Darren already went into some detail with. We have 5 gigahertz, 2.2, 785, and 605, all the way up to 1.4 on that one. And all you can see here are very high power, 2628 dBm, usually 2x2, but we've done some 3x3 work. What's next? Again, AX. Revving all the 4431 chipsets. Why are we doing that? Same reason you've heard everyone talk about everything today. Supply chain. It's been really hard to get the AC chipsets. The hints we've been getting from our suppliers is move forward or die. So we're moving forward. So you're also seeing new 5 gigahertz, going all the way up to 7 now, though, because these AX chipsets let us get up to that edge of 7 gigahertz. 4.4, which is new, and an upgraded 1.4 with a little wider range. Another thing that's coming up is we've seen some of our competition in the military space have very high power, higher power than you would get normally on an integrated radio. So we've been looking at amplifiers that could be done externally or perhaps integrated into a card. So now you're seeing power levels that Radiant's never shipped before. You can see here different amplifiers targeting different frequency ranges matching up with some of the radios we're producing. But the goal here also is we're trying to get very high data rates, very high power, even at those high data rates, which is another thing a lot of vendors don't hit. They quote super high power, but it's at some really slow data rate. We want to try to get that same high power at those fastest rates. And next up is Allentown. Thank you.
Hey everyone, my name's Travis Miller. I'm out of the Moorhead facility. So to piggyback on some of what Dave said, this is an AX radio. This is in very early stages, so a lot of this is subject to change. So some of the stuff you see here, just take it with a grain of salt. You'll be talking about a lot of this within the next 2 years too. We're in the early phases. Like for instance, we just had our kickoff meeting within the last couple months. So we're in like early schematic work as well as mechanical idea design. So that's kind of the idea of this. So AX radio. So the general idea of this is, again, a lot of this is taking keys from the Algonquin with a low swap C design. And this is expected to have 2 radio model. So a 2, 4, and 5, and then 5, 5, and it's a 2x2 MIMO, right? So same idea as well, OEM form factor, and then an unsealed enclosure design to be used. And what's unique about this design, we're doing it fully in-house, and it's fully chips down design too. So it can be expanded on in the future, as well as it helps drive the size and the cost low. So just target cost at 10K units, $80 for OEM, $150 for package units. For this, like I said, it's early on, so projected sale date mid to late 2024. So like I said, we'll probably be talking about this next All Hands as well. And same market as warehouse robotics and UAVs, things like that. Some target technical specifications we currently have, like I said, max target transmit power, 26 dBm. Power, we're expected with some of the chips we design or have chosen 2.5 watts, 15 watts, passive PoE, as well as DC input. Weight, subject to change, but that's, we're trying to go as low as possible for enclosure model. And then OEM, RF can shields, things like that, and then mounting options. So, like I said, it's early on. I didn't get to have any cool pictures, but I did have a block diagram of the team we put together, right? So, on the left, we have just one Ethernet port with passive in and then a DC jack. We do have the capability for looking at USB 3.0 on this design specifically, which is the IPQ 6028. It's a like 1.8 gigahertz processor as well, so it's a little bit faster than some of the stuff we've used as well. So we're looking at that. On the right side, you'll see 2 different chains, the 2, 4, and 5. we're doing some techniques where we expect to have it choosable at manufacturing. So if you want a 245 design, you can have that with the same PCB. You also have a 5.5 design. And then some just flash and RAM, right? No big deal. So some benefits of this chipset and then AX as well, as Dave has mentioned. This specific target chipset for this is, 1,000 or 1.2 gig for 5 chain. That's the PHY rate, and then 500. So that's like our same bandwidth, but increased rate. And then it does have the option for 80 megahertz for 5 and 20 or 40 megahertz for the 2.4. It could be usable, but maybe not. And then this specific chipset also has the use case of 4.9, and as Dave mentioned too, it does have the capability to use 6 gigahertz operations. So we're doing this design to then push it in the future, right? If we want to make a bigger design, more ruggedized case with a 6 gigahertz option or a military radio as well, this is like the initial push for that. So, and that's pretty much it. So, thanks everyone.
Okay, one more. So at least 3 times today, I think, you heard mention of products focused on OEM scenarios. And it occurs to me that some of you may not know what those letters mean. So OEM is Rajant operating as what's called an original equipment manufacturer. That's what it stands for. What that means is that Rajant is providing a component to be used for other people to make products out of. We do have partners and customers who take breadcrumbs and put them in a bigger box. That's not quite the same thing. This is more of us selling a board, and it's going into a system with other boards and other electronics and all that to make some other kind of product where the breadcrumb functionality is just a piece. We've done this before. We've been doing it for a while on a very small scale. We have a couple of partners that we sell OEM products to. 3DP is one. Vorbeck is another. We're successful with them, but not only are we doing this at a small scale, we can't scale the way we're doing this. And we want it to, because this could add, OEM sales could lead us into new markets. There are far more potential markets for breadcrumbs than we have any hope of beginning to explore. None of us saw mining as an opportunity when we started, as you heard a few times. We're looking into a couple of others, but there's a bunch more. So by having OEM products, we can delegate the exploration of these other markets to people who believe in them, to people who are focused on areas that we never would have thought of. OEM products also allow us to get into more niche scenarios where we're not trying to sell 1 million of the same kind of product. We can sell to lower volume manufacturers who have a very specialized need, but that need is so small that it wouldn't make any sense for us to pursue that ourselves. And finally, it can get us to higher volumes. Now, of course, any sale is higher volumes, but by having a small suite of OEM products that we can sell across all these new markets and niche products, we can get higher volumes in a way that actually makes sense for us to pursue. As you keep hearing, it's expensive and difficult making breadcrumbs, hard to get parts, and if we had to chase down parts for 100 different kinds of models, we wouldn't stand a chance. So, like I said, we've been doing this for a little while. There are some challenges that we face, and that unfortunately we also kind of push off onto our OEM customers a little bit. We have channel plans that go into every one of our models for every country. The channel plan is really, it's a small database that tells the breadcrumb what channels it's allowed to operate on, what frequencies, and how powerfully it's allowed to transmit in any given country or regulatory region. And that is a difficult thing to keep up with. It's a difficult thing to get certifications for, as many of us know. And it's baked into our firmware, which is part of the reason it doesn't scale at all. If 3DP wants to sell their product that uses our OEM board in a country that we don't have a certification for, we have to work with them to get their product certified. It's not scalable. Country licenses are another thing. We have a mechanism for telling a breadcrumb what country it's operating in. That tells it which part of the channel plan it should be using. And for various legal reasons, we're not allowed to let customers just switch their countries however they see fit. We need to vet these requests a bit and at least make a solid effort to prevent them from circumventing their local rules by just telling their breadcrumb it's operating in a different country. Vetting other partners, customers for this is not something that we're going to be capable of doing. And finally, and this is something we're not addressing at all with our current OEM customers, is customizing what's actually configurable in the breadcrumb. We sell an OEM ES1 board, and it's, as far as it's concerned, it's an ES1, and it has all the capabilities that an ES1 has. And if 3DP puts this ES1 board inside their Hornet, but doesn't, say, bring the USB port out to the outside of their Hornet, the breadcrumb doesn't know. And we still allow the user to configure all this USB stuff. And if that breadcrumb is connected internally through Ethernet to some other board that 3DP uses, we still let the customer configure that Ethernet port that's internal, which is kind of fraught with peril from a support standpoint for 3DP and for us. And finally, the default values of the configuration. It may make sense in an OEM scenario that the breadcrumb should have different default values for different settings as well, because of the physical configuration of the device. And so our goal is to give our OEM integrators control over all these without us having to get stuck in the middle. We don't want to be a bottleneck. We don't want to assume responsibility for their channel plans. We want them to have the flexibility that they need to get their products out there. This means decoupling all those things from our firmware release process. And this is something that we're working on. We have a number of the pieces, the technical pieces figured out. We do not yet have the human processes, the flow that we'll be following with those partners figured out yet. We're going to do that, I think, as we go with the first partners. But with all of those solved, we're still not completely off the hook. That solves a number of the problems that we have and that we've been pushing on to customers, but there's a bunch more. We can't just toss a breadcrumb board over a wall and say, here, make a product out of this. There's a lot of brains that go into this. You heard a lot of them talking today. There's a lot more behind the scenes, but there are engineering constraints to how you can make a product that's going to work right with a breadcrumb inside. There's electrical constraints, there's mechanical, radio constraints. You could have interference from other things inside the same box. Antenna location things that customers don't have the slightest clue about because it's hard. Homologations, thermal, and then there's just training on the product. They may have used breadcrumbs. They may know, okay, these solve our customers' problems, but they don't know enough to support them as their own product. So there's a whole lot that we need to work out with them. And so this is still being defined, but there is going to be a one-time fee to start up an OEM relationship with a customer who wants to pursue this. That's going to cover some of our time. It probably won't cover all of it. It'll be a sign of commitment from the customer. And it'll help recover our costs, and we're going to figure some of that out as we go. There's a lot of unknowns here for us. There's a lot of unknowns here for our OEM partners. Undoubtedly, we are going to learn a lot of lessons as we go through this. Other things, how are warranties supposed to work? How is network support supposed to work? There's a lot that we need to figure out there. But this is the way we're heading. This is how we intend to scale the delivery of the breadcrumb product as an OEM product versus the board, the hardware part of the product. You've heard a lot of folks today from across engineering and manufacturing and shipping and others, and they're just the tip of the iceberg for the folks who make all of this work. I won't go so far as to say that everybody's critical for something. I'll go farther and say that everybody, even behind the scenes, is critical for at least 3 of those things, which wouldn't happen without them. So thanks to them. Thanks especially to those who got railroaded into talking up here today. Thank you very much.
All right, let's get started. I have a couple of comments on this morning's presentations. You know, I saw some polling that most people would rather be eaten by alligators than give public presentations. So, and so I was really proud. I'm really proud of the whole team. I know for a lot of folks, it's not a pleasant thing they look forward to get up. And this crowd is actually pretty large. It's kind of surprising. I think Mike Schillinger had said, you know, I've seen the numbers 150 or whatever, people 170, but when you stand up here and look at the crowd, you go, yeah, that's a lot of people. And for a lot of our team, public presentation is not what they do. So I was really, really happy that people kind of fought through it. And made the effort, and I think the thing I take away from is, boy, we have a lot of smart people working for this company. It's really, really impressive, and the effort is one that just makes me very happy. And the public speaking effort, I'm just very proud of everyone who made the effort to get up here and talk, even though I know it's not part of your daily job. So thank you. You guys and gals are doing great, great, great work. And it's important to all of us to have good medical care in our lives. So this is what we do, and I'll turn it over to Jim Turner and his team, and he'll tell you the tale of the specifics of this program. There you go, Jim.
Thanks, Bob. Appreciate it very much. Thank you for having us. We always enjoy the all hands meetings at Rajant. You guys are a great company, as Bob just said. Not only smart people, but good people and great leadership. And I've had the pleasure of working with leadership in operations and accounting, finance, and HR for a number of years. And I can tell you, along with my colleagues, Nikki Mengel and Dennis Connor, we do this all the time. We see companies all over the country like yours, and we can tell you that from a culture standpoint, from a leadership standpoint who wants to take care of the talent that's out here in front of us today, Rajant is at the top of the list. So well done, everybody. We're going to be very short and sweet today because this is one of those rare examples, and everything Bob said is exactly on point, that the healthcare industry needs to change. And it's not quick to change, unfortunately, but it is changing. And Tompkins, which is a company that is a trusted advisor for all types of companies all over the country, focuses specifically on these types of things. And so we have a plan, and we're working the plan that will mitigate some of these risks that Bob just talked about, not having control over costs or not being able to do things from a plan design or a funding standpoint. So we are working with your finance, your accounting, your HR, and your legal and compliance folks to put that plan in place. So we think you're on a good trajectory, and we think things are going to be good in the future. So that's good news. The other good news is, and we very rarely get to say this, that almost nothing is changing this year. Raise your hand if you're enrolled in the healthcare plan. Raise your hand if you're enrolled in the healthcare plan. Okay, great. So I'm sure there's a couple people that are new. You're going through the eligibility or the waiting period or whatever, and you'll be enrolled in the healthcare plan. But everything that you know in terms of your healthcare plan is not changing. Your carrier, your access to providers, your benefits, which include your copays, your deductibles, and your coinsurance, all of those things are remaining unchanged, including your employee contribution. And the team put together this little one-page summary of all the good news. And so in the first couple paragraphs, you will see that as respects to your dental, basic life, AD&D, which is accidental death and dismemberment, and then it's not a very attractive description, and long-term disability, these are benefits that are provided to you at no cost, unchanged. And then the ones that you do participate in the contributions for, your medical, which includes your prescription drug, and your vision, those aren't changing either. So it's a win-win-win across the board. I wanted to make sure that up front we introduced ourselves to you. Our information is on the bottom of that sheet because we have found over the years that, especially in group settings like this, people aren't very comfortable asking non-generic questions. The generic ones we're happy to address in any shape or form here today. That's why we're here, to educate you and make you aware of what, if anything, is changing in the additions and the enhancements to the program, but also to answer questions, and everybody usually has questions. If you're not comfortable asking them in a group setting, please text us, call us, email us, however way, shape, or form you like to communicate, and we will set up some time to chat with you one-on-one. And you can include your spouses, dependents, however you'd like. We want to make sure you're aware of all your benefits, you're educated about how to use them, and that you do use them. Because there are many benefits here, particularly in your healthcare plan, that will cost you nothing or very little. And one of the things that I want to emphasize is on a national basis, only 40% of people that are covered in the plan like you have now with Aetna, sponsored by a group like your employer, only 40% of the people enrolled in the plan utilize their preventative care. So that means that 60% of participants, not necessarily you, but of plan participants, aren't even using the benefits that would provide great testing and great diagnostic things for you without any copay, any deductible, or any coinsurance. And then if you look at your plan specifically, you have low copays that are not subject to deductible for things like an office visit or a specialist visit or an urgent care visit or getting a prescription drug. So these are the benefits that we want you to utilize, and utilize them as much as necessary, because statistically the data shows that people that use their preventative benefits and utilize their copays and deductibles for office visits and prescription drugs have a lower propensity to have high claims. If you defer care or don't get any care at all, you're putting yourself in a position to have a large claim at some point in the future. So if you haven't utilized your plan in the past, we strongly encourage you to do so. And if you have questions about carrier, Aetna, provider, the doctors, whether they're primary care or specialists, contact us. We do this all the time. We will guide you and help you and walk you through that. I think that is pretty much it. Nikki, did I miss anything? All right, great. I always make sure that Nikki's with me because I usually miss something. So the next part of the presentation, again, is going to be very efficient. We're going to talk about an enhancement to the short-term disability. I won't ask you to raise your hands, but we know there's a fair number of you who voluntarily participate in the short-term disability program. That program is being enhanced, and then we have an additional 2 benefits, accident and critical illness, and our specialist, Dennis Connor, is going to walk you through those briefly. And again, if you have any questions, we're here and available to answer those. Thank you, Dennis.
Okay, so my name is Dennis Connor. I'm here to talk about 1 enhancement to your benefit plan and 2 additions to the benefit plan this year. The enhancement is the short-term disability. This is a voluntary benefit, a voluntary plan. In terms of disability insurance, it's really income replacement. If you're unable to work as a result of an accident or a sickness, disability essentially replaces your paycheck, okay? Rajant does provide long-term disability to you at no cost. That's an employee benefit. Long-term disability kicks in at 90 days. So if you're disabled with an accident or a sickness beyond 90 days, that disability is what's going to replace your income for as long as you're disabled, maybe even to retirement. The short-term disability is really filling that 12-week gap for the time that you're disabled until maybe your PTO time runs out, up until that 90 days. This is a benefit that is already offered, but we're enhancing it this year. So this is a benefit that's offered through a company called Unum. It basically, currently, it's an individual short-term disability program. We are converting it to a group short-term disability program. And when you do that, when you change the chassis, it really helps provide better coverage at lower rates. So I know there's a number of individuals in this room currently that participate in the plan. And the good news is that every single individual that currently participates stands to save money. On average, about 50% of your current premiums. Yes, that's good news. So if you are currently enrolled in this benefit, when open enrollment opens on Employee Navigator, please do re-enroll into this benefit. You'll notice that the waiting period will probably be shortened from 14 days to 7 days, and the premium that you pay out of your paycheck will go down by roughly half, okay? Now, if you don't have this benefit, I'm just gonna tell you what this does. Short-term disability will replace your income if you're out of work starting on the 8th day that you're disabled. So if you're out of work for up to 7 days, you're going to take your normal sick or vacation days. On the 8th day, short-term disability would then pick up the paycheck. It pays up to 60% of your income. It pays that to you on a tax-free basis, and then it would pay it for up to that 12-week duration, and then you would transfer onto long-term disability. You can pick the amount of disability, so you can get up to the 60%, but if you need less, you can purchase less, which is a nice feature. And it will protect up to $1,500 of weekly income. And if you do the math there, essentially if you make up to $130,000 annually, this short-term disability will protect that full portion, okay? The other thing I wanted to mention is that this plan does cover maternity leave as well. So if you're female and you're considering adding to the family, this is a great way to get at least a portion of your maternity leave covered and paid. Specifically, it pays a 6-week benefit for maternity leave. So upon birth of your child, you can fill out the claim form and they'll pay you a 6-week benefit in one tax-free check, okay? The last thing I want to mention about this benefit is that because we've upgraded it this year and enhanced it, it is guaranteed issue. So typically with these types of benefits, there's some health questions involved, some qualifications to make sure that you're healthy enough to get the benefit. This year, because it's essentially a new benefit for all employees, it's guaranteed issue, meaning if you sign up in Employee Navigator, you simply select the benefit amount you want, the premium that you feel comfortable with, and there's no questions asked, okay? If you waive out of this benefit this year and apply next year, health questions would apply. Okay? If you're currently enrolled, it's important that during this open enrollment, you re-enroll into the benefit. You don't necessarily have to choose the same benefit amount. Maybe your income is increased, so you may want to adjust that, but you do want to re-enroll into that benefit to keep it, yes. The voluntary accident is a new benefit this year. Accident insurance is something that is designed to supplement your medical coverage. So it's a separate payable benefit. Covers you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And really what an accident policy does is it pays you for injuries and treatments that are associated with an accident. So whether that's a car accident, whether that's a slip and fall, whether that's an accident that occurs as a result of a sports injury, there's a schedule of benefits. It pays for dislocations, burns, concussions, broken bones, and it pays specified amounts for specified injuries. In addition to that, it also pays for the treatments. So if I were to break my leg, if I'm covered under an accident policy, it's going to help pay specific benefits for emergency room treatment, follow-up care, physical therapy, for x-rays, and those dollars become important if you have out-of-pocket costs associated with care, right? So deductible expenses, co-pays, co-insurance, these are the things that this separate payable benefit can help you pay. These dollars are paid directly to you as the insured. They're paid, again, tax-free, and then you use the dollars at your discretion. Okay, so there's really no strings attached to this policy. I do mention that you can buy family coverage for this. So if you have young children that are active in sports, like I do, I have twin boy-girl that are 12 years old. My daughter Reese is in a cast currently. She's hopefully getting it off tomorrow. So if you think about that, it's a very low-cost, high-impact benefit in terms of taking some of that financial stress away from that unexpected type of accident. Again, this is also guaranteed issue. And just to give you a sense, it's about $6 per pay for single coverage. It's about $19 a pay for family coverage. Okay? Okay. And then last but not least is the voluntary critical illness insurance. And so we just described accidental insurance. Really, this is the equal but opposite plan. This is really for critical disease. This covers 18 different major illnesses. And the design of this plan is it's to pay you if you're diagnosed with a major critical disease, things like cancer, heart attack, stroke, organ transplant, kidney failure, the types of illnesses that would surely make you use your health insurance. It would possibly keep you out of work and put you on disability. It may cause you to have other financial out-of-pocket expenses if you need to, seek alternative treatment, if you have travel and lodging expenses. So again, the design of the plan is very simple. If you sign up for a critical illness policy, you choose between a $10,000, $20,000, or $30,000 benefit amount. Okay? When you decide how much coverage you'd like, you then own the policy. As long as you pay into the policy, you'll be covered. Upon diagnosis of one of the critical illnesses, you file a claim, you'll receive your $10,000, $20,000, or $30,000 check. Again, it's a lump sum tax-free payment that you use at your discretion to really supplement your health insurance. Okay, so you can sort of focus on getting well versus the financial repercussions of being sick. Okay. What I do want to mention here is that this is also guaranteed issue because it's a new benefit. So if you have a family history of any types of illnesses that would be covered under this policy, I would recommend taking advantage of that guaranteed issue and buying it this year so that you don't have to answer the health questions in subsequent years, right? This is also available for family coverage. If you sign up as an individual, your children will be automatically covered by the plan. That's a nice feature by Unum. If you want to add your spouse, you can also do that as well. Spouses and children are eligible for 50% of whatever benefit that you decide on. So if I choose a $20,000 critical illness policy, I can get up to $10,000 for my spouse and child. Okay? And then the last thing I want to mention about this policy, because it's not that fun to talk about cancer, heart attack, and stroke, is that it does pay a preventative benefit. So like Jim Turner was talking about, the best, the an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. This policy will pay you $50 once per year per covered person to go get those wellness tests done. So the types of exams that we're talking about is your annual physical, your cholesterol test, PSAs, mammograms, right? Those are all of the covered wellness exams under a $0 copay under your health care. So if you start to take advantage of those benefits, or if you already do, if you own the critical illness policy, you can file a separate claim. It's called a health screening benefit claim and get a $50 check essentially as a reward for doing that. Okay, so it funds part of your premium. Okay. All right, any questions on the critical illness? All right, and then I'm just going to show the next slide. This shows some of the additional critical illnesses that are covered by the plan as well. Yeah, it's a great question. So the question was, if you don't have the base coverage, if you're not enrolled into health insurance, can you elect these additional coverages? And the answer is yes, you surely can.
Great, thanks, Dennis. So raise your hand if this says you will receive an email from Employee Navigator initiating open enrollment. Raise your hand if you know what Employee Navigator is. Wow, great, excellent. So that email will be coming out to you in the next next few days. That will sort of initiate the open enrollment cycle. Just a couple things before we wrap up. Oh yeah. Thank you. And this gentleman asked a great question about the short-term disability. If I don't do anything, what happens? So, as I said, we do this for a living, and we know that the people that sit in a room like this and hear the message, nothing's changing, the propensity is, and by human nature is, that I don't have to do anything. We are strongly encouraging everyone to respond to the Employee Navigator email And even if you're not planning on making any changes or enrolling in any of these new and enhanced type of benefits, please go in, become familiar with the system, take a look, a fresh look at all of your benefits. From an overall benefits offering standpoint, Radiant has a very strong benefits program offering, and you should take advantage of it. So two more questions real quick. Raise your hand if you bike, jog, hike, play on a softball team, or ski. Raise your hand if you do any of those things, even if it's once in a while. So there's a lot of people out here who probably should think about that accident policy. The little vignette that Dennis gave about the critical illness policy is that you can get $50 if you enroll in the critical illness policy and just go get your preventative care. You're once a year, no deductible, no copay, no coinsurance, office visit, to have a professional in the medical world look in your eyes, ears, nose, throat, and have a conversation with you about things. Nothing but good things can come of that. Nothing but good things can come of that. So thank you very, very much for your time, for your attention. Again, thanks to the Radiant team for all their support and leadership. Did I miss anything? We're all set. Any last questions anybody has? And again, on that sheet that Nikki put together, you have all of our contact information. Please don't hesitate to reach out and ask us any question. We appreciate being here. And I guess next on the agenda, Charles is coming up maybe to introduce our friends on the 401k side. But thanks again, everybody. Appreciate being here.
Our next presenters are everything 401k. We have our broker of record here, it's Seth Bittner, and also Munz Financial. As many of you who were here last year, or if you're new, know this was a transition year to a new provider. I will just introduce them. Feel free to ask them questions after. I will also then transition into the kind of the legal update for the companies, and then we go get lunch. So I'll try not to bore you too terribly much, but if Seth and Dave want to come up, the floor is yours.
Again, my name is Seth Bittner. I'm the plan advisor for your Radiant 401k. You could think of me as the plan quarterback. Dave's going to go through a presentation here this afternoon. Before he does so, I would like to just say that there's a lot of uncertainty out there right now in micro, macro markets between inflation and volatility in the markets and rising energy prices, wars, geopolitical risks. There's a lot going on right now. So if there's any sort of nervousness or questions that you want to sit down to really run through, your plans here or anything else that you have, I'm here as a resource, and we'll make myself available. If you don't have my contact information, you can get it from Valerie or Diana, and I look forward. And also, if anyone hasn't enrolled yet, I do have a handout with some instructions on how to get into the plan. Without further ado, Dave.
Thanks, Seth. Appreciate it. You hear me okay? So I like the interaction that you all were just doing. Can I get a show of hands who's in the plan right now? Okay, so that's pretty good participation. Can I get a show of hands who is not in right now? Just want to see if that's more. Can you keep them up? A little bit higher? Okay, keep them right there. Who's going to be in the plan after this presentation? Oh, no, you're supposed to keep them up. You're supposed to keep them high. Just kidding, just a little here and there. I just have a couple of slides to go through, a couple of items I want to discuss with you and give you the opportunity to ask us some questions about the plan, most importantly about the investments within the plan and so forth, and I'll talk about that. This being kind of a transition year as Charles described it, one of the main reasons for this change was actually to get you into a platform
that provided one of the lowest costs out there in the marketplace. So through PCS Retirement, we have access to Charles Schwab as a chassis, which allows us to use exchange-traded funds in lieu of mutual funds to bring down the cost significantly in the plans. What our job is at Muntz Financial is to monitor those investments and build the model portfolios that you have to invest in as investment options. So if we could just go through the slides here. I want to talk about so first and foremost, I just want to talk about, because there are certainly a number of people that are not in the 401k plan right now. I just want to talk about some more generic things regarding your personal future and what you can expect as you work through your years in retirement. Because let's be honest, Rajant's a great corporation, and I've heard a lot of great benefits being offered today. But at the end of the day, you're working to a means to an end, right? You're looking toward your own retirement and to have a successful retirement at that, not just to stop working and rest. So if you take a look at this, and if you can't see it in the back, I apologize. I'll talk through it just a little bit for you. But basically, again, I don't know if you've ever seen this. I don't want to be redundant for those that are into this. But for those that don't know, right now, assuming that Social Security will be there in the future, because we certainly are not on the path for that, but assuming that Social Security will be there, Social Security is only going to cover 40% of your retirement income needs. So the question becomes, what are you going to do to save to cover the delta there, that difference? And if you see the number under that, the $275,000, you just had your health providers up here. That's the estimated cost of your health care in retirement. That's a pretty big number, just that. So I have to say the average Social Security right now, if you're using basic numbers, is actually a pretty big number. If you were to annuitize that number, for example, over a period of a 30-year retirement, that number is somewhere between $700,000 and $800,000. So that's a big part of what you can expect. But the average retirement number that we see is somewhere around $1.8 to $2.5 million to have a successful retirement. That's how much you can expect to spend in your retirement years. Okay, if you have let's say a 30-year retirement. On the bottom right there, this is kind of interesting to me right now, although I can't quite make it out. This is the 1 in 4 of us right now are expected to live at least to the age of 85. Those that do, that number is 1 in 10 will reach at least the age of 90. Right, so I think you need to be prepared for a future because of medicine, because of the attention to health and medicine, I should say. We're all living a little bit longer, and I think we need to expect to have a bigger burden to cover. Just going through, this is an example of 3 different scenarios. And for those of you that are young, if you haven't seen this, this should be kind of a wake-up call as to what you should be doing as far as savings for retirement. So this basic scenario, won't take a lot of time to talk through it, is essentially somebody that waits to the age of 35 to start putting money away, somebody that starts putting money away at 21 but stops early, and then somebody that puts money away at 21 and continues to put money away for another 46 years until their retirement. Okay, you could see the bigger numbers at the bottom, and there's a significant difference in that. So waiting, the cost of waiting in your retirement years is significant, very significant. Okay, you see poor Michael there has only got $342,000 saved up in his entire working years because he started too late. So what Michael needs to do in reality is Michael probably needs to be putting more money into his plan in order to carry that gap. Okay, and Ashley is a great example. I see it more than anything else, is they do the right thing and they start early, but then life happens. And they have a family, they buy a house, they change jobs, they do things like that, and they cut the 401k off. You can see that because she started early, she has a time value of money on her side. So the compounding rate of return over those years really helps her out. But she doesn't do nearly as well as Courtney over here, who maintained her 401k contributions throughout her time. We're talking, if you can't see it again, I apologize. It's kind of small letters to me, or numbers to me here, but it looks like $57.69 going in to the plan on a weekly basis. So we're not talking about a lot of money here, right? So but a small amount of money over a long period of time has an incredible impact on your end result. So one of the things that we focus on really as it relates to the plan and my team here is we focus on participant outcomes. So it's almost not enough to just have a plan and save, but what does it mean to you? Because each one of you are going to have a different reality in your own retirement. So part of our job is to help you understand what you're faced with and how and really help create a plan to help you get there. So I don't want to talk just in generics. We're all here to help you individually. I think it'd be a good time to introduce Garrett Basilega and Joe Horgan. Garrett's, if anybody's worked with my team in the past year, you've probably worked with Garrett. Clearly you can see he's retired now in Florida. Kind of not a joke, he's actually in Florida right now. Joe Horgan is going to be taking more over for that participant interaction role. Joe is a new member of our team. He's a certified public accountant. He happens to be actually the trustee of his family plan, which is a similar size plan to what we're dealing with here. So he has a lot of experience and expertise in dealing with 401k plans, participants, and so forth, just so that you know. And Joe, you'll have his contact information as well. Feel free to reach out to him or anybody on the team to facilitate a meeting. So the benefits of participating in this plan, it is really easy to do it. And I hate to say like set it and forget it, but once you enroll in the plan, your employer does everything for you through payroll. Everything's deducted. It's sent to the record keeper, the custodian. It's invested in the model portfolio. You don't have to do anything on your own if you choose not to. Certainly there's tax advantages of putting money into a plan. For those of you that are not aware of that, money can go into the plan on a pre-tax basis, which means you don't have to pay taxes on the money you contribute each year. You get a tax deduction for it when you file your taxes at the end of the year. It's also portable. So this is your money. And in saying that, one, when you put this money into the plan, although there's restrictions in taking it out, there's potential penalties and so forth in the future if that were to occur, it's portable, it's yours. If you leave employment here at Rajant, you can take this, roll it to an IRA or another company 401k plan, it remains your money, okay? You can take it with you. And then you have the growth potential. And those that haven't been invested before, you should understand, the big topic today is inflation. It's what everybody hears about. You see it and live it through the gasoline prices that we're seeing. It's just a small part of the inflationary world that we live in, but that's become very real. So it's the topic of conversation, let's say. Having your money invested is really the only way to grow your money beyond inflation over your working years. It's the only way to do it. Having your money in cash, having your money in a CD, having your money in even bonds now we see, which has had one of the worst periods in a long time, it's not really the way to do it, okay? You have to have your money invested. You have to give yourself a chance to grow. So again, they have three kind of paths here from an investment standpoint. The first is do it for me. That's you say, hey, I'm not interested in investing. I understand the importance of it, but I don't want to do any of the work. You can let our team do that for you, okay? Help me do it, and that's our team. We can help get you engaged with the plan, show you how it works throughout it, and you can start to make your own selections and choices and so forth. Or you could just do it yourself. Do it yourself could be, you don't need our assistance, you don't need any help. You can go in there and you want to manage the money on your own, and some of you may be in a position to do that. In my experience, in a group this size, there's at least 2 or 3 of you that can probably do that, and you have an interest in doing that, and I would never discourage you. We can be a sounding board if you have some thoughts or ideas of what you're doing. Certainly, you can reach out to us in that regard, but by all means, you can do it yourself. But I like that flexibility. For many of us, I think it's easier to hand off to somebody else, an expert, in areas that we are not, right? So going through this, and for those that can't see this, I guess I'm here to let you know that you're still not going to see this. I apologize, but it's a little bit bigger on there. All right, so this is essentially a periodic table of investment returns. This is really kind of a demonstration of, one, some of the complicated areas of the market, the differing returns within those markets. And again, from the back of it's difficult to see, they're color coordinated. And each one of those colors represents an asset category within the global markets. And what you'll note is very seldom is the same area of the market the best or the worst return, for that matter. And that's true year by year. It's also true, and not illustrated on this one, a diversified portfolio will come floating around kind of the top third in this chart. If you were to imagine that, it's never near the bottom, it's almost never at the top. Right? Because diversification, you're owning a number of these asset categories so that you can blend the returns between them to get an average rate of return that you can expect. That sounds kind of complicated. That's what our team, that's what we do. That's what we're experts in. So when you log into your plan and you see the options from preservation of principal, conservative, moderate growth, and enhanced growth, they're the portfolios that we're putting together, and we're managing them on an ongoing basis on your behalf. If there's a fund or a manager within the portfolio that's not working out, we remove them and we replace them on your behalf. You don't have to do any of that work. So we monitor them on a quarterly basis, and we report our findings to the plan fiduciary every quarter. So these are, again, an example. I'm going to skip right through this a little bit, but this is just kind of a sample allocation percentage. It's fairly rudimentary, but you have international small cap, mid cap, large cap, bonds, and corporate preservation, which would be essentially a cash position. And you could see between them how it varies. Let's just take the international, which would be a little bit more of your aggressive investment on the aggressive portfolio, and you could see it goes from 33 down to 9%. So it's just an example of as you get more conservative in a portfolio, you own less risky asset classes. Okay. And I know this one is definitely a little bit difficult to see. This is actual returns in the portfolios that we've experienced since we've had this. And I have to just talk about this for a second. It's been a significant anomaly that we've seen in this first quarter of this year. This is one quarter of only 5 quarters in history that we've had a negative equity and a negative bond market. So stocks and bonds did bad in this first quarter. There are sectors of the market that did phenomenally well, such as oil and gas, energy sectors, for example, have done significantly well. So that you're aware, we added in energy into 3 of our portfolios because energy tends to be a little bit more volatile. The preservation, conservative, and moderate portfolios have no exposure, but then we start our exposure in the moderate growth through enhanced growth. The enhanced growth has 9% allocated to energy. So what we found, and it's interesting because it's, again, very rarely happens for this short period of time, the more aggressive portfolios have actually outperformed some of the more conservative portfolios, okay? We don't expect that trend to continue. We expect the trend to be much more along the lines of what you see in the 5-year track record there. So, and we manage those to that end. So with that, I just wanted to, I guess, open it up to any questions that anybody would have on the plan or the investments. Well, that was easy. See that? That's great. Yeah, thank you.
Before I get started, I think we probably ought to take a moment and thank Alice and her team, Liz, Megan, everybody else who contributes to making this run as such a smooth event. You guys do a tremendous job. It's a lot harder than it looks, but I think the beauty of how you do it is that you make it look easy to everybody who attends. So I want to thank you for putting this all together. Teresa, yes. I just want to tell you how proud I am to work at Rajant. Just like anybody else, has frustrations with their job or sometimes their colleagues from time to time, working here is important. It's important for a lot of reasons. Maybe most importantly is because what everybody does here saves lives. Mike and his team with our military and the federal government and on the front lines of some really god-awful places, making sure that people are safe. Paul and Marty and Dave Acker on the breadcrumb team and the commercial team, making sure that really dangerous work environments for a lot of people are safe because they have communications. Jeff's team, they just keep going and going and going. Alice's team, again, making sure that we're known to the world, not just in the United States and Canada and Central America, but all over the world. Rajant is a world brand now. It is a big deal. So when I say I'm proud to work at Rajant, I really am. I mean, there are lives that get saved. Now with Rajant Health, I think we're going to see a change fundamentally in healthcare. the days of, not feeling well and going and seeing your doctor and seeing 10, 15 specialists and, then there's 20 people standing around you on a table while some bad thing is being repaired or cut out of you. That's all going to change because of the people at Ragent Health. They're figuring out how to get that same result, but through computational power. Instead of getting a knife stuck into you and your organs spilled out on a table, they're going to be able to literally click a button and change some genes in you. This is huge. This is why I'm proud I work at Ragent. There are a lot of really brilliant, strong, dedicated people here. And like you heard from Mike Schillinger yesterday, I think our first all hands was 25 people in a conference room in the old building. We're now 179 people. That's growth. That's serious. And one of the things that unfortunately comes with growth is lethargy and, bureaucracy. We've all worked at big companies where it took you 6 months to get a replacement pencil. One of the themes of Ragent is up top. It's Ragent time. It means speed, agility, and urgency. We try and keep that as we've grown. You'll hear a little bit from Julie. She's really done a lot in terms of standardizing our onboarding process. Megan, who you will meet, if you want to, come on up now, is in Malvern. She handles much of the day-to-day HR requirements that come up. And when you go from 20 or 25 people to 200 people, it's a big lift. And just like Alice makes these big meetings seem seamless, they do their best to make your employment experience at Ragent seamless. They are really dedicated to making Ragent live up to its awards of being the best employers in Kentucky and Philadelphia. This is a patent. It was awarded this past year to Paul Hellhake, Dave Acker, and Bill Jordan. System and method for controlling dynamic transmit power in a mesh network. If Paul talks to you, he can tell you what that means. Another patent. I think we're up to 9 now. Right now we have 39 active matters with the Patent and Trademark Office. 39. It's a lot. It covers Ragent Health and Ragent. They are dispersed among patent applications and trademarks for Jeff's new nomenclature for the breadcrumbs and some of the Ragent Health terminologies and brands. So that's a big deal. It never ceases to amaze me how brilliant the people are who work at Ragent. Just to get a patent these days is near impossible. Last year, Brian Doy received a patent out of Arizona. And that was the fastest patent I have ever seen granted in my life. It was a matter of months. So the examiner in Washington who got that patent knew he had a hot potato in his hand. Unfortunately now with COVID and everything else, the government is moving painfully slowly. One of the reasons why we have 39 active patents and trademarks under review. But it's something that keeps growing and keeps building. And it's really because of the brilliance of the people in this room. Same thing with Ragent Health. A lot of patents, actually today and tomorrow, or today I guess, getting converted from provisional to utility patents. I'm not going to bore you with the details, but kind of makes it official. We had one litigation this past year, one lawsuit. It was a patent lawsuit bought by a patent troll, and Paul and Bob reviewed it along with their technical teams. And we took the position of, I won't use the words, we took the position of hell no. And we got some outside counsel. They drafted an opinion for us. They sent it off to the patent troll. And as a result, the patent troll said, yeah, we'll go away if you promise not to sue us back. That's a big deal. It doesn't happen in the patent world. Patent trolls typically are deaf to logic and are deaf to persuasion, but Paul's team put together the argument. The lawyers put together a even stronger argument with some of the past filings that this patent troll had made, and they went away. The interesting thing about it, a lot of it had to do with Stanley Black & Decker, and under our former arrangement with Stanley Black & Decker, we would have been on the hook for them, but we also told Stanley Black & Decker that, no, you're going to have to pay your own fees and costs on this, which was a nice result. Still made for some sleepless nights and looking up a lot of vocabulary words that I didn't understand, but one litigation, 0 employee lawsuits, 0 customer lawsuits. In fact, 0 customer lawsuits since I started here. None of our partners have felt the need to file a lawsuit or even threaten. And I think you should take that into your calculation of the culture here at Ragent. Nobody hates us, except our competitors. Nobody's willing to sue us. Nobody wants to pick a fight with Ragent. And it's probably based on the fact that all of you have built so many strong relationships in the parts of the industry that you touch. That's a big deal. It really is a big deal. Makes my job easy and uncertain. I may not be employed if you keep doing this, but you deserve a pat on the back. You really do. The last topic before I introduce Julie is sexual harassment. Every year it shows up in the itinerary, and every year I try to change it because it suggests to the audience that we are in an environment of sexual harassment. We're not. There's no claims. Nobody knocking on the door saying, hey, I want to complain about an employee. I think they're doing something inappropriate. And that is, again, due to your professionalism and to echo a theme that you probably heard earlier in the week. You don't get a big policy book necessarily when you join Ragent. Certainly not like in other employers or other places. And it's because we have a simple rule here, and it is you treat your colleagues with dignity and respect. And that's great because everybody does it. It's great for so many reasons. I can't even list them all in my head, but it's important. It's really, really important. Nobody wants to open up the paper and find out about a lawsuit against an employer. We see it all the time, and we see it against the big names, even in our own industry. But as long as you remember that golden rule, which is you treat people with dignity and respect, I don't have to put up flow charts or burdens of proof or try and tell you how to behave either on email or in the office. It's really another credit to everybody in the room and even those who aren't here. All right, Julie, as all of you know, is our HR director. She focuses mostly in recruiting and onboarding employees. She's done a terrific job over the past 2 years, actually, getting us kind of into the 21st century in terms of computerizing it. A lot of what she sees, you don't see because it all happens behind the scenes. But I asked Julie to introduce herself and talk to you and tell you the things that she's been able to accomplish. And also as Megan. Megan is a great resource. She's right in Malvern. She's here every day and is certainly capable of answering all your questions when it comes to benefits and just all of that stuff that I can't keep in my head. She's been a great hire. We're very fortunate to have her. So now you can associate a face with the name on the phone list or whatever. But we have adopted a very open door policy. We want you to come see us when you have a problem or a question. We will commit to you to do our best to solve it. And with that, I'm going to step away and pass it to Julie.
Thanks, Charles. I hope I'm not too redundant here. As Charles said, I'm Julie Buckner. I'm Director of Human Resources and Recruiting. And I love to catch people doing something right. So I'll be quick today, I promise. But I have all positive things to report and people to recognize. So here we go. HR has made some changes this year. We added Megan to our team as our HR generalist. We both report up to Charles, and he keeps us in line and dots our I's, crosses our T's. And together we are HR. First, let's discuss growth. And it's worth mentioning again, as we've heard the last couple days. Bob and Paul started this company with about 20 or 30 people after 9/11 to enhance communication for first responders. At the beginning of 2019, there were 113 people, according to Bob's chart yesterday. Now, just 3 years later, in spite of a global pandemic, we have 179 people. That's a lot. Our products are in 74 countries worldwide. We've moved into markets beyond first responders, like military, government, oil and gas, energy, transportation, rail, mining, warehouse automation, and more, bringing mission-critical wireless connectivity everywhere in the shortest amount of time. And during COVID, when most other companies were laying people off or shutting down completely, Rajant launched a subsidiary of our company, Rajant Health Incorporated. That deserves crazy. So what is HR doing to support all this growth? First thing, Paylocity. Rajant is now fully automated. This was a huge project we accomplished this year as we moved our payroll and HR systems onto the Paylocity platform. And this is the right resource to help us scale and continue to manage the remarkable growth we're experiencing. I need to give a shout out to lots of people here. This was a huge collaborative project. Val, we could not have done it without her. She spearheaded the whole thing, and it was really heavy lifting on the payroll side. Lisa Hallowell helped with the offer letter templates. Diana and Charles also worked with me on this. And now Megan is doing payroll. So it is just a huge collaborative effort, and it was a really big project. When I started, I remember printing out my offer letter and all the policies and forms and signing them, scanning them, emailing them back. And it was all manual, archaic, and very time-consuming. Now, a new hire can onboard with a click of a button and see our company history, culture, policies, procedures, sign up for payroll and benefits. It's much more efficient, convenient, and accurate. There's a self-service portal where you all can go in anytime you want and get your pay stub. You can do things yourself, like change your address, deductions, beneficiaries. We can also use it as a company intranet and blast out messages and updates. Overall, it's a huge step forward in Rajant time to carry us well into the future. Another big win, and Alice mentioned this yesterday. We won Best Place to Work in Philly and Kentucky again for the second year in a row. This is because of all of you guys. Give yourselves a hand for that, because that's awesome. So when you go to Rajant headquarters for lunch today, check out the video where you'll see your colleagues on camera talking about why they like working here. This video, along with our culture guide, was part of our ongoing effort to highlight our awesome company culture. This was another big project, and Taylor did a great job interviewing Bob and Paul, Marty and Dave Acker, Keith Sullivan, Amber, Liz, Jeff Smith, Pat, and Bernard. He was the star of one of our culture videos. Make sure you check it out. We use this video to welcome new hires and also for recruiting on our career page. Culture. At the end of the day, culture will never show up on a balance sheet, but it can have a tremendous positive impact on our bottom line and growth. Okay, human resources. So we're all human, and we all do the best we can, right? All of you, all of us, we are the company's most valuable asset. We know that all of Rajant's success would not be possible without all of you, our employees. Historically, Rajant was created because leadership was passionate about health and wellness, not only in general, but for you all, the employees. We have a relaxed office environment. We have a casual dress code. You can bring your dog to work. You can bring your pet. We don't really care as long as you're happy and you get your work done. We also know that COVID was a tough time for a lot of people. So I want to point out some of our health and wellness initiatives to make your lives a little bit better. Did you know, I think you found out today, Ragent covers almost 90% of health insurance premiums for you and your families. That's huge for a company of any size, much less a small company like ours. And Aetna increases us about 5% each year, and Ragent covers the cost of this with no change to the employees. Have you ever figured out how much these staggering costs contribute to your overall total comp? That's unbelievable. That's a lot of money. Oh, this is more fun. Massages. Yes, we are like Google. Did anybody like a free in-office chair massage during your workday at work? Anyone? Well, I know I would. I would love that. So we're offering free in-office chair massages once per month. So reach out to your office managers to get scheduled for a time slot. Fitness classes. So you all now have access to the CEO's personal trainer, Jennifer, and her entire team. At least 5 classes per week are held in the Malvern Gym and streamed out to our offices in Kentucky, Arizona, remote employees, and contractors at home. Classes include arms and abs, glutes, cardio, yoga with Yoga Beth. So you all can get the same quality and level of training that our CEO himself receives. So Bob, wherever he is, thank you for that. I don't know where he is. We also have invested in updating your in-office gyms, new equipment, a basketball hoop, a volleyball net, yoga mats, exercise gear. You might have noticed in your swag bags, there's a couple things. We want to make sure you can participate wherever you are. So if you need an item that'll aid your participation in these classes, please reach out to your office manager or HR, and we will order it for you and have it shipped out. Shout outs go out here to everyone. I mean, Diana, Suzanne, everyone was in collaboration. IT, I mean, Timmy Chin, Mark Reed, Mir, Al, they're all saints. I mean, we work with them all the time. The marketing team, Alice, Gizzy, Liz, Brian, I mean, we couldn't have done any of all this stuff without everybody that I just mentioned. We know how hard you work for Ragent. If you're full-time at 40 hours per week, and we know many of us work more than 40 hours, who here works more than 40 hours sometimes, right? Definitely. That's a minimum of 2,080 hours in a year. So take 1 hour, several times a week, to focus on yourself. We offer 260 fitness hours during the year. So yeah, take a class, take a breath, take a walk, take a hike, and focus on arms, abs, glutes, thighs, or whatever. Oh, actually, that didn't sound good. Your own. Your own, not anyone else's, because then that's another issue, HR issue that Charles could address. But take the time during your workday. We are offering this, encouraging this, supporting this, and facilitating this. So please take the time. You earned it, and we don't want you to burn out. Finally, Charles mentioned this, employee relations. Incredibly fast growth like this will always involve some growing pains. If you have a situation where you'd like support, an advocate, or just an ear, our collective door is always open. Charles, Megan, or myself, please email, call, or even text anytime. I know I'm personally up to 12 o'clock midnight Eastern time every night, and everybody here knows I love texting. So don't hesitate to reach out anytime. That's all I have. I hope you guys catch people doing something right today. Have a good day. Go have lunch.